Hello and welcome to the Silent Evil Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I am Cameron.
We're coming at you with our third round of the Metro universe, the Metro Exodus. This is the one that I think was the only game that I actually sat down and tried out way back in the day when I initially bought all these games and had the good intention to play them. And I remember playing this one for like the brief moment in the beginning and so on, and being like, I'll come back to it. And the next thing you know is years later.
Yep. Yep. Pretty much the same for me too. My buddy Jared and I think co-bought this like on day one and whatnot, and we both played like an hour of it and then put it down and never played it again. Like I've messed around with it like a few times over the last couple of years, just trying to get myself back into it again, but again, it was just like because it had that like semi-open world thing, like it just never really fully gave it a full shot, yeah, super glad we did this time though.
Yeah, I am too, because I really enjoyed this one a lot, because I think that was the thing when I initially played it. Like it gave me that same vibe too. It's like, oh, this is gonna be like a Fallout game. Like you're like, okay, maybe I don't have the time for this right now. And lo and behold, the game realistically is only maybe a fraction longer than the other two games.
Yep.
And it's only longer if it depends on like how either lost you get or how much like dicking around you do, pretty much.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, it's totally player driven. Similar to the other games too. It's just like, when you look at this game like a linear experience where it's just main quests, like if that's all you do, I mean, yeah, you're totally right. Like 12-hour game, or so, 10, 12, like somewhere around there. But yeah, a lot of the more open world sections is wholly up to the player on how long you're going to spend in this experience, So I pushed 20 by the end of all this, but that's including like DLC and everything too. So
I meant to check because the PlayStation does tell me how long it goes on there, but it always seems to be like it takes a moment to update. So like it makes you feel like you played way less than you really did, and then all of a sudden, like a couple days later, it'll finally update.
Yeah,
be like, oh, that makes more sense. But I kind of spaced out and checking that out. The thing that bummed me out though is I played through this entire game on the PS4 version that I had downloaded on my PlayStation hard drive, and then I realized like towards the end, it's like, oh, there's a PS5 enhanced version.
Yeah.
Well, never mind.
At least granted, I will say money's worth out of it.
Yeah, like the game looked extremely good still. The only thing that kind of told me it was a PS4 game was the load times were a little bit long, because that's always one of the most notorious things on PS4 is that there's some terrible load times. This one's not terrible, but there's some moments when you get to like an open world segment where it's just like, oh yeah, you got some time to kill.
Yep. Well, even on PC, man, I mean, like, because, I'm throwing this on my M.2, and even on PC, some of those open world sections, like, take a minute to load, especially when you're, like, loading a previous save or whatever, coming back, so, but yeah. It is interesting that you got to play the PS4 version, though, because I played the PC enhanced version, which so funny, so... we were going back and forth like through some sales stuff, and I remember like looking at Metro Exodus and seeing that I had the PC enhanced version just randomly just appeared in my library one day, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, okay, so I've always had Metro Exodus, like the original day one launch version on Steam, and then later on another Steam sale in the distant past, I bought Metro Gold Edition, like, so it came with the DLCs and blah 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 and all the shit. Right, like even like right now, I'm looking at them. Like I have 3 versions of Metro Exodus in my in my library right now. So I have the original, I have the Metro Gold Edition, and then now I have the Metro Enhanced PC Edition. And what's funny is like, and we'll get to the DLCs later, but like going to go find the DLCs in here and seeing that they were locked. And I was like, why? Like I own the gold edition. Like, why the fuck are they locked? And then like going back and like looking at my library again, I was like, oh, this is it's the literal like day one edition, like upgraded to this PC enhanced edition, whatever it is or whatever. But I never bought the DLCs on that edition. So like, so I had to go and rebuy the fucking DLCs for like $1, whatever they were. But
well, that's at least the upside is the Metro games. They practically toss those games out. Like,
yeah,
I don't know why they sell them so low. It almost bothers me that they sell them so low, because I bet you there's so many people that go buy them and go, $1.99. That must not be a very good game.
Right.
Yep. That's the only thing. Like when you put your game that low, that almost doesn't look good. If you know what it is, you're getting a hell of a deal. But if you don't know, it's like, It's
Yep.
so low that it looks like there's something wrong with the game.
It's got to be Deep Silver, like the publishers just got to be doing just like a mass sweep, of like all their games at the same time, like dropping sales on them all the time. So,
Yeah.
but, but yeah,
Because
no,
even
in
Metro,
general,
I ran across it on the Switch too, and like a lot of times games on Nintendo are always like a fraction higher than everything else sometimes, and it's still you get the Metro 2-pack for $4.99 on there.
yep, yep,
It's just like, well, it's like there's no reason to, maybe $4.99 for one of them on sale, but $4.99 for two of them. It's just like,
right, yep,
yeah, it's just so weird that they sell them so cheap. And the same thing with Exodus too, because I think I bought it like I think I have the trilogy on GOG, like the Super Editions, because that was like $7 one day, and there was a moment you could play that on Amazon Prime. Of course, now you can't play the GOG thing fell off the face of the earth on there now, which is kind of a bummer because that was like the best part of the Luna thing was that you could use the GOG games. If they don't have that anymore, I'm kind of disappointed.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah, well, thank God. I mean, there's like a billion different ways to play this game, and they always go on sale, like Spencer saying, So, like, yet again, another just freaking great experience, man. I had so much fun throughout the like totality of this entire game, and to like be able to play through all of this and really enjoy the vanilla experience and then hit a DLC and going like, holy shit, like that DLC is like even better. And then like finishing off with the smaller DLC. And even by the end of the smaller DLC, I was just like, this as a full package is just perfect. And for, like Spencer's saying, like how often this game goes on sale, just like the amount of value that you get for $5 out of this is insane. It's just insane.
Yeah, you're getting way too much of a game for that $5 price that Exodus mostly goes for. And the fact that these games they're on sale more than they're not on sale, it feels like.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I totally enjoyed this one. As I said, just the start of it, I feel like because you can see the huge jump in graphics because I think what's it been like 5 years since Last Light came out.
Yeah.
So they've been working on this one for quite some time. I think it's 2019 by the time this one finally comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell that like we're now into that PS4, Xbox One, era where okay, they understand how the system works. They don't just look like enhanced, 360 and PS3 games. They got it pretty dialed in. And even nowadays, just looking at it, like it holds up so well graphic wise. Like it doesn't feel like it's even as old as it is.
Yep. And for my first experience, like being able to fully play this game, because like I've played up through essentially like the very first mission in the Volga, like where you go to the tower, essentially meet that one character. I have done that probably 6 times, like like leading up to this experience, like finally getting past that point and whatnot. But yeah, like I forgot. I like lost my train of thought on that one. But anyways, like the experience in this was just I don't know, like even comparatively to okay, so one piece that I think our audience should know like right off the bat is that this continuation story of Artyom I felt was it was kind of jarring, like getting to this point of his story, because at this point in this story, it's like we've conquered the metro essentially. We've cleared out everything of like all the different factions, and like a lot of that has been like exonerated by the time Last Light finishes and whatnot. In the start of Artyom's story here, of like just pure curiosity sending him on this journey, like. It hits along those beats of Metro 2033 of him like learning about like Miller, or sorry, not Miller, but Hunter coming to him and basically being like, hey, if I'm not back in the morning, go to this place, and then like Last Light's thing, like being a lot about the factions and him like exploring through more of the metros and whatnot, coming to this point of this game, going like what's really out there, like that portion of this like hit me so hard that I was just like, hell yes. But as we've been talking about for the better part of the last couple of days, like I think just as a baseline that the audience should know about what I've learned about the totality of Metro is like Artyom needed a voice like so bad throughout this whole experience.
Well, and the worst part is he has a voice in the loading screens when he's reading the journal entries, which is the strangest thing. But then when he's in game, he's like mute. So it almost kind of feels like he's this special ed protagonist because it doesn't come across like like certain games that have the silent protagonist, meaning that it's supposed to be your voice. And I think that works fine when you're playing like a Super Nintendo game and there's no actual dialogue or anything like that, and you're
Mhm.
sort of filling in the beats. It starts to get kind of weird when you have a game that's very cinematic and all of a sudden one character doesn't talk.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Well, and now it's starting to hit me too because I think back about our within our time within 2033 and Last Light, and a lot of my complaint of that game was just like the multiple audio layering things going on it like constantly. And fortunately there's DLCs in this game where your character does talk, and that is like all that problem just goes away because this continues in Exodus. Like there's a handful of sections in this game where Artyom's walking around and like three NPCs are talking to him at the same time, and it's just like, god damn it, it's still happening. Like, why?
Yeah, it's
But
too much. Or it's like, like sometimes there'll be like a computer player talking, then you go to turn on like the radio that's gonna have a little cassette tape in it. And then you're like, I don't even know why I'm attempting to try to listen to all this because it's there's too much going on. And the other thing too is this game has still another issue where it comes to some of the talking that kind of is because we're in a sci-fi game, this shouldn't really be an issue. I mean, if it was like an 1800s game, it's one thing, but like when something's like when characters are talking to you and you walk away from them, it tries to do that realistic thing where you now can't hear them. But as a video game goes, it's like, just put that over my radio headset or something.
Right.
I think other games do that where like you like if you're next to the character, you hear their voice, and the second that you start to get farther away, they turn to like a radio comm voice.
Yeah.
I kind of wish this one sometimes did that too, because whenever there is those parts where someone's like, let's walk together, and I'm gonna walk really slow.
Yep.
You're like, no, it's a video game. Run. Nobody
Yeah.
walks. I think in the video game world, nobody should ever walk.
Right.
Never do those stupid Red Dead Redemption things where the characters just want to slow ride their horse. That is the most annoying thing ever. I don't want to hear what you have. If you're gonna talk, you better be able to ride fast.
Yeah. So speaking of the walk, so there's literally a button you hold X on keyboard to walk in the game, so because everything's like analog, it's on or off, essentially on keyboard. So I didn't know that for a majority of the game. So the other way to do it is literally just to crouch. Like if you just crouch behind them, you walk at the same speed as them. So like my entire experience, like every one of those scenes, everybody just looks like a giant comparatively to Artyom, like as I'm like walking behind him, listening to the story and shit. So funny.
That was like literally the other day. They had this Perfect Dark VR like mod that somebody put together, which is really badass, and it uses just the N64 version. But I remember I was sitting on the floor playing it, so pretty much it just made it look like Joanna was crouched the whole way through, but I still ran at full speed.
Yeah.
So I was just running in this, just shoot all the enemies, and I'm just like literally about crotch level at them.
Yeah. That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
But yeah, well, I will have to say this. Speaking of which, though, the button combinations, because you played it on keyboard and mouse, so at least you actually have a lot of buttons. A little minor pet peeve I sort of have in this one is, boy, they try to jam way too many things on way too many buttons, and especially the console version, because not only do you have like your items like up, down, left, right on the D-pad, you also could hold L1 and that had an up, down, left, right, and triangle, square, X, circle, vice versa with R1. And if that wasn't enough, they also had holding buttons. So sometimes you had a hold, and it was just like, that was like way too much. Like, okay, you gotta pump the brakes on how many things we got going on here. Maybe some of them just remove them. They don't even have to even be there. Like there's one where you can like look at your watch. Like, well, I see the watch the whole time. Why do I need to like physically look at it too? It's not like it's hidden.
Yeah, there's a bunch, and again, fortunately on keyboard, because you literally do have so many buttons. The only one that I manually changed because it's just annoying. Anything beyond like the G key on a keyboard for me is just forget about it. Like I'm not
too far away.
Like I'm not, like that's already a stretch to hit G. So I, like if you hit I, that opens up your backpack, or you have to hold I. So like you physically have to remove your hand off your movement of
That's
art.
such a far, like reach. I'm looking at it right now. My keyboard's a split keyboard too, so now it's like it's a super, like you'd never be able to make it.
Yeah. And then M for map. Okay, so this is like pulling up your map. M's not so bad. I can tap that with my thumb. Like I can hit that because
it's just right there
resting on
above
the
space.
bar. But
yeah.
Anyway, so like that was the only controls that I physically changed. Was I changed it to tab. So like hitting tab once, just tapping tab pulls up my map, and then holding tab opens up my backpack, and that made it to where my hand never had to move the entire game, and it was just perfect. So
That's
One
perfect.
other one was my throwables, because throwables is automatically mapped to C, which is just a funky
That's weird. That's
position.
crouch. Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
in some
Um,
games or yeah.
so I
I
didn't see
always
that
hate
on
when
mouse
somebody
button.
wants to reinvent the wheel on something. It's like,
Right.
a button's been like
Yep.
this forever, and then all of a sudden, yeah. Or I guess Z sometimes crouch, but whatever.
Well,
Um,
left control is very common in PC games too. So
I
to
guess,
like,
yeah. Or maybe that's what
crouch.
I'm thinking of. Maybe that's where I was getting the C part from, is left
Yeah.
control. Yeah.
Well, some games
Uh,
are C for crouch. This game, like the toggle. So like if you hold crouch, if you hold left control, you crouch. If you let it go, you stand back up. The toggle button is Z. So it's like all directly underneath your movement key. Like it's just a weird.
it's too many. It's like one
Yeah.
of those ones, like, sometimes it's that thing where it's just like, that's about the only thing in this game. I felt like they could have almost simplified some of these controls. Like,
Oh
they
yeah.
almost like went a little bit too hog wild. And it's almost like, it's even the thing of like having a flashlight and then having like the torch. It's like, pick one or the other. Do we really need two of them?
Right.
You know what I mean? It seems strange to have two lights. And then at some point in this game, I just lost my flashlight. I don't know what I did or if I removed it myself, but it was gone for like like the last third of the
Maybe you took
game.
it off like the helmet or something.
Maybe, yeah, maybe that's what it was. I
Yeah.
just, but the downfall in this game is you can't fix any of that stuff until you run across like a crafting table. So like it was just gone. I just had to use the
Yeah.
little torchlight walking around,
Yep.
and this game is dark. That's like one thing I will say is this game, like when it's dark, and when it's bright, it's bright. Like they went way hard on that HDR. It must have been like a new feature right when this game came out.
Yeah.
Because like there's points in this game where it's just like you literally can't see anything. It's either way too dark or way too bright,
Yep. Well, and so I had this really weird skewed experience because I played the PC Enhanced Edition, and it requires ray tracing. Like that's the part of the PC Enhanced Edition. So you have to play with ray tracing. Um, that experience was actually really fucking pretty, ultimately. Like being able to see like actual light being rendered and bounced around and all that, like through the engine and everything, was just fucking wonderful. It was so cool. I'd be really curious to go back and see the original. Like you said, you're playing the PS4 version. Like I really want to go back and see the baked in lighting, like all that side of it and whatnot, just to do that comparison. Because even down to textures in this version, like texture mapping is just so insanely detailed. So anyways, but yeah, like
Mhm.
in terms of graphics and like lightings and whatnot, like getting to play the PC Enhanced Edition with ray tracing on at like a very solid frame rate and all that was just it looks like a modern game. It looks like it came out this year, ultimately. So
Yeah, and I bet, and I can imagine that playing the PS5 enhanced version would have been something similar.
right.
But as I said, for the most part, the PS4 one was pretty darn solid. I gotta say this, but since we just mentioned the buttons, though, the one other thing too that I thought was a really goofy choice is, so when you kill an enemy, you can always go up and loot their bodies like you could in all the other ones. Except for this one also has like multiple buttons. Of course, why would it not have multiple buttons when you go to press people? So one button would pick up the backpack, and then there'd be another button, or then there'd be when you found the weapon, there was two buttons. One was to pick up the gun and swap it, which was the same button that you use to pick up the backpack. So that's like, why is that the same button? And then the other one would take the parts off of it, which is what you generally wanted to do. But that was also the same button as crouch. So sometimes you would go to do that, and you just crouch instead. And it was like one of those ones that there were so many multiple button uses in this game that like it was not so bad that it like really like ruined the game, but just enough that you're like, okay, don't mind me here. Or you swap a gun, and God forbid you swap a gun, and then you can't get your good gun back.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But
Yeah.
it's like I wish that was like, why is there so many? Like, can't I just make square the whole time? Like let me just pick up everything there, and if I want to swap it, make that like circle, because I'm never going to press that probably unless I really want it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, fortunately, I didn't play on controller at all throughout this whole experience. So, like, I
You
can
probably
see
had
what you're
individual
saying, but
buttons for all these things, which
yeah.
probably made a big difference instead of
Oh
having
yeah.
these multiple. Some are hold, some are press.
Yep.
Hold L1 and it changes everything. Hold R1 and it changes everything.
Yep. Yeah, very funky controls for sure. But but at the same time, like I can totally see why like they were going for Again, when you think of this in the light of Stalker, it's just like, okay, it totally makes sense, like the complexities of like having a wristwatch and having like a little navigation thing, and like having the lighter, having the torch, having the like all the different things and whatnot, just screams Ukrainian development. Ultimately, like every Ukrainian game I've ever played is just like this, so.
Well, and it's probably that one. This is another one of those games that kind of reminds me. And granted, lo and behold, they did do this, but they're very much designed like they almost felt like these should have been like VR games before VR in a weird way. Just the same way that what's his name was I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Soma. And a few other ones that we've played that they just kind of like feel like they were designed to be a VR. Like Metro kind of has that feeling like it wanted to be a VR game, but there wasn't anything to be a VR when it was kind of put together.
Yep.
Just by the way it is and trying to make it as like realistic as possible and limited HUD and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. Well, I mean, fortunately, there's
one
but came out after.
Yeah, Metro 4. They put that out and it was VR, so they thought that one through. So it makes sense though, because it's like you see that, it's like that's what I mean. It just felt like you were leaning so far into VR, you just finally went into VR.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I guess another like core centerpiece of this game that is much different than the other game, it's basically it's level design in two particular areas, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with like open world stuff. I always get super nervous about open world anything. Like I'll use I was thinking about this really heavily when I was playing through this. So when Halo Infinite the trailer started coming out for Halo Infinite. And I remember like seeing it and I'm like, oh, it's going back to the original, Halo style. But then I really saw it and I saw that map and I saw really how big it was. And I was like, oh, fuck, is it doing the Ubisoft thing? Like, please don't be doing like the original design. Yeah, exactly. But like the original design of Halo Combat Evolved, it was an open, like the very first mission, missions you play and whatnot, like are very open world, but they're design paths to certain places and whatnot. And I remember like playing through this game and like getting to the end of it, especially at the end of both of these open world sections, going like, god damn it, they did exactly what Bungie did back in 2001, with this, where it's like open world, but it's a condensed open world and there's a lot of detail in it. And there's a lot of shit to go see and do and, things to find and discover. But if you want to mainline path it, just mainline path it, it was wonderfully designed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because open world's one of those ones very rarely is that make me excited. That mostly seems to be a turnoff to like a video game. Because I feel like it's like other than Grand Theft Auto, a lot of people don't know how to do open world very well. And Grand Theft Auto, this is the reason why I think Grand Theft Auto works well, is because one, you have cars and you have a lot of cars to drive. So that's already just kind of fun in itself. And to top that off, you have a radio station. Like all that stuff like occupies your time of in between. Where so many games when they're open world, you have one vehicle or one something or another, and you get kind of bored of that after a while. Like it loses its luster of driving around. And then you don't really have anything to listen to, and you just feel like your time's kind of being wasted. Where Grand Theft Auto is actually very enjoyable just to drive around. That's a game in itself, So I think that's why that has always worked. So many other ones, like Assassin's Creed was fine at first. They did just kind of they just got more and more and more and more like into it where it became almost too much stuff. Like how I feel, those are the kind of games. Great if that's the only game you got to play for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
If you're a kid and you got that for your birthday and you were going to milk that, for till the next holiday, perfect. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to open world, I like that kind of mini style, and Metro did it well. It reminded me a lot of Sniper Elite, because Sniper Elite does the open world levels, but it's just like, there's like 10 of them in the entire game. But like, so it's like, you're given your like whatever 5 missions per level or so, give or take. And so the open worldness gives you like, okay, I can either come from the left side, right side, back side, whatever. It gives me choices there, but it's not so big that you get overwhelmed where, like, kind of like those Final Fantasy VII remakes where they start putting a bunch of junk in there that's just like, this is not even good. This is just, it's slogging the game down and so on. And granted, a lot of games have, if I notice they have that kind of stuff, I just do the thing where I just run to the main missions and go, nope, don't get distracted. Just go for it,
Yep.
But at least in Metro, like, I wouldn't mind like stopping by if I saw like, oh, there's a little question mark here on the map. I'll stop by and take a look at it, because I didn't feel like it was one of those ones that was really pulling me away too much.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if I missed one, there was really, you weren't missing out on anything. It wasn't like
Yeah.
one of those, because that's something about some open world games. You get that feeling of like, oh, am I going to be missing out on something really good if I don't stop in here?
Right.
You know,
And I mean, yeah, I mean, because majority of the time that I went to go, like, just because it was just on the way, like a question mark would just pop up, a point of interest, Artyom's like little, mission marker thing would update. And it's like I like look over there and it's just like a building, but it's not like a cookie cutter pasted, copy pasted building. Like it's a well designed, an artist went in there and made that, type thing.
yeah.
So it was always like interesting enough, to like kind of pique my interest, like, oh, what's in there, and sometimes it would just be a couple health packs and just like a little side story and a note, environmental storytelling, like a dead body leaned up against something, or whatever. You pick up the note and I don't know, the amount of like various just like little mini tales that they tell throughout the totality of this is just, it's really good,
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed that aspect of it for sure. And sometimes you get some, like really cool shit, like, I mean, like I showed you, like I took the time to go to this one. It was out of my way, but I was just like, I'm going to go check it out anyways. What's over there, and I drive all the way over there or whatever. And I go inside and I fight all the things on the inside. And then at the end, there was this reward. And it was like the same fucking pistol that I already had, but it had a drum magazine. It had this fucking like, like massive scope on the front of it, silencer and all that. And I was like, cool, an upgrade. I was literally using that pistol anyways, so fuck, why not,
Yeah.
and took that pistol and like so sometimes you do get some like pretty cool rewards out of it. But at the same time, it's not the type where you open the map and it's just like marker, 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 it's just like, oh my.
Yeah, you start to get that anxiety. You're like, I'm just gonna play another
Yeah.
game. Let's put an arcade game on instead.
Yeah. Well, and the other really cool part about it too is that it has this binocular system that it really wants you to use often. Whenever you get up somewhere high and you can like overlook an area or whatever, like it wants you to pull out your binoculars. And as you're kind of like scanning around or whatever, or as you approach things, when you come in with proximity of them, then you're unlocking these POIs kind of naturally. And it's not like I said, it's not like an Assassin's Creed thing where you climb the tower, hit a fucking thing, and just like all of a sudden there's like 50 markers all over the place. It's like, no, you're just traveling along and then all of a sudden a little marker pops up and it's just like, oh, point of interest, but it's not in your face. It's not like you gotta go do that thing, like it's not screaming at you,
Yeah.
Again, just really cool design. I really enjoyed that. So.
Speaking of which, I kind of forgot to use the binoculars at all in this game. I remember when that one dude shows you him like in the beginning of the game. I don't think I ever used them past that point because it was one of the it was like a holding button. It was one of those mini. I was like, it's just too much.
Yep.
There was a lot of those buttons I didn't even really like. I was like, I'm not even gonna look at some of these.
Yeah, see, that was a simple way. Actually, you just hit B. You just hit B for binocular.
As I said, I think I used them on that one mission, and maybe like one time we're on, I told me to pull it out and so on like that. But
yeah. And the other cool thing about the open world sections is how diverse they are. Like snowy, kind of like swampish. I don't know what, like, really. I mean, it's just like Russian outdoors, around some rail yards and shit, and then the other one being like a dried up sea. It's literally the Caspian Sea. It's just fucking dried up that you're just driving through, and like
so now it's a desert.
So cool. Just so cool.
Well, I also, this is actually one of the coolest things. I think what I really loved about this game is, one, it's the story is a road trip story. You're on a train, but it's a road trip story. And that's already, I always feel that's a great way to tell a story, whether it be a movie, whether it be a video game, because your locations always change. So you don't get too bored of anything. And the thing is kind of cool is it's a road trip story across Russia, because most people think Russia and they think snowy, all this kind of stuff, but they don't realize that Russia's massive and it has like every single kind of climate you could possibly imagine there. So you start to see the forest, you start to see the desert area, which is like in the southern section. I like when you get to the part where you're almost like right next to Mongolia. So like the Russians start to have like a Mongolian look to them, because once again, you almost never see those kinds of Russians used in movies or anything like that. Because once again, we're always getting those Western, Russians, like, like they're always out of Moscow and everything like that. So I thought it was really cool seeing the whole like countryside of Russia throughout this whole experience. And just the places you would go and the vast variety. So it's like you're in an area for like a couple hours at a crack, and then you're in a brand new area next. You know, you don't get that kind of burnt out feeling where it's just almost like, even though don't get me wrong, I like Fallout and stuff, but Fallout kind of like is one of those ones like everything looks kind of the same the whole 100-hour journey. You know, it just all has that post-apocalyptic, everything's kind of burnt out, deserty feel. Where this one has a lot of variety going on.
Yep. No, and that's what I was probably might be my favorite part of this game is its art design. Just because of the insane amount of environmental detail, like every environment is different. This game not only does semi-open world exploration and like streamlining with its mainline quest, it does that phenomenally, and it still has there's certain sections that you go back and it's just like the original games. It's just that linear, you're back in the Metro style corridor experience and whatnot, and just like all of it is just like it makes me so freaking excited for 2039 later this year. Like I can't wait to see like what that's gonna be.
I looked up Metro 2039. It's not coming out till February now.
Oh, it's not? Okay, so
yeah, I saw. I don't know. I just remember I was looking it up when I was playing this game. I was just like, when does that one come out? And I was like, oh, February 2027. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, you know. But
the original trailer, I guess, did say just winter.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing because it's like that Tomb Raider game was supposed to come out this year, and then that got pushed back too. So
okay, all right.
You know, but I was like, oh, okay. But no, I'm super excited for that because of how this one was designed, and this one's designed so well for the most part. You know, all you gotta do is there's just those like minor tweaks that like I think that will be even more dialed in that next one. You know, like one other thing I guess I could bring up is on some of the traversing stuff they have here. And granted, well, this game's actually post Breath of the Wild now that I think about it. Because Breath of the Wild, I think, was 2017. So never mind. I was gonna give this game a little bit more of a pass on that, but wait a second. But granted, it probably was in development this whole time, because that's the one thing I noticed with like a lot of like open world games is sometimes it's like traversing things. It's like it's like I need to get up over here, but then there's a bunch of junk in my way. It's like, well, how the hell do I get up and over this? And I can't climb things or anything like that. Breath of the Wild was that first kind of game where it's just like, oh, no. If there's like a mountain in your way, just climb up it. Like, you just got to have stamina. That's all you need is stamina to get up and over. And if you don't have that, well, that's okay. You can actually earn more and so on. So that made the traversing of a game like so dialed in. I think that was really the best part of Breath of the Wild was the fact that like, if you saw something in your way, you literally had the ability to climb up and over it. Where sometimes in some of these games, when they're made real well, but they're kind of still designed to be like an old school first person shooter, like where you're just on like a level design. And then there's some things you got to get around in it. And like you get caught on everything and you can't climb anything. And sometimes you're afraid that by like trying to break the system, you're going to get stuck in something.
Yep.
Because there is some moments in this game where you're just like, it just was not designed for certain open world things of like, if I need to get up and over something.
Yep. Now I can, excuse me, I can tell that 4A was pushing the limits of this engine in multiple avenues. The fact that like, and I'm really curious to see if in 2039 we actually get swimming mechanics, because like even in this game, if you go anywhere near it, you fall into it, and then it's a dice roll if you drown or not, and like sometimes
or something eats you,
or exactly, but I mean. But for it to be like a modified engine from 2033, like heavily modified to get to this point and whatnot, like it's still pretty impressive what they were able to pull off with this, But exactly what you're saying, man. Like I'm really curious to see like what the next design is gonna be, because this does totally have 2013 elements where it's just like, nope, there's invisible walls. Like, nope, you're not going past this area. There's a particular section that comes a bit later in the game that both of us were just like, it's just so annoying to traverse, and because we'll just talk about it real quick. You're basically in a boat, like there's a bunch of different vehicles in this game. You got cars, you got trains, you got, like this freaking boat thing. And the boat is just like, it's sluggish as hell. It won't turn worth a shit.
Yeah, it's got the worst turning radius I think I've ever seen in a video game. I've not like your turns are so wide in this boat. I'm like, what boat is this bad at turning?
Yeah.
And
well,
then
it's a
you get caught
motorized
in
boat.
everything. There'll be like a blade of grass sticking out, and you're like,
Yep. Yep.
crashing into it.
Yep. Yep. And like even earlier in the game, like so when you're in the Volga, like you're in the very first section or whatever, like you're in paddle boats, and there's a handful of sections in this game where you're like in paddle boats and whatnot, and like even those things can be just such a pain to fucking navigate, you know?
Yeah.
So
I will say, like, all the vehicles or whatever you want to call them on it, those are the only things. It's like it sounded cool to get in them, and then you kind of realize, like, oh, it's kind of a chore to be in this.
yeah.
Even like that, you get like this Volkswagen, you get like the equivalent of a Volkswagen bus, like the Russian equivalent of one,
Yep.
like in the desert level. And at first I was like, well, this is kind of cool. And then like when the sun was bright as all can be, I was like, I can't see a single thing when I'm driving this. I have no idea where I'm going. I don't have any like radar or anything like that. So I just
Yep.
literally had to get out and like, I guess I'm not using this.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. But again, you know, they tried and it
Yeah.
works well enough. I mean, like it gets you through the level.
It's decent enough. It's like, that's what I mean. It's not so bad that you're like, I'm not doing this. It's
Yep.
just enough that you're like, probably better if you didn't have that. Like, can we just get rid of some of this water here? Put the water on the outside of the map.
Yeah.
Like, I can look at it, but I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Just because some of the stuff, it's like I see the place that I need to get to, and then you're like, well, where the hell am I supposed to get into that? You know, and sometimes you think that this one boat there, it's like, yeah, that one we're talking about, the motorboat, was in the DLC for Sam, and that DLC was amazing, but there was just one boat section in there, which is like, I just felt like I just kept trying to figure. I knew where to go, but it was just like if you didn't get that one specific section, it was just like, good luck.
Yep.
You know, there's just a bunch of junk in your way, and you're just gonna have to really kind of like crash up against as many things as possible, hopefully hoping you'll find the right one.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the only time that one particular section was the only time throughout this entire experience that I put down over frustration. I was just like, I'm coming back to this tomorrow because fuck this. You know, I can't figure out where to go. You know,
I did the same thing, and then I luckily found it the next day, because it was just like I spent like I felt like I spent too much time on that. Was like the only reason that there was like a lot of time. There was that boat. Everything was going so smooth in that story run, and then all of a sudden this boat part gets thrown in there, and if you go too far south, oh great, the radiation is going to kill you. And it's like, because that boat's so slow at turning around, you'll die from radiation before you're even able to get back out of there.
Yep. So another cool like thing that happened with Exodus, based off it being a semi-open world, at least in majority, I mean, like I would argue that the two open world sections are probably going to soak up like at least half of your playtime. Like I spent a good long while in both of these areas and whatnot. So with that, in traditional Metro, like, you know, as you're progressing, you typically come across like a cache of, you know, like weapons and ammo and things like that. Like, and it's usually like a signpost type thing of like, oh, there's a boss about to happen, a chapter change is about to happen, something. But here, how do you do that in an open world? So they did is they brought in this backpack mechanic, and I fucking love the backpack mechanic. It's so cool to be able to like, you know, you're running along and whatnot. Spence was complaining the last 2 episodes of Metro that we've covered about like, there's sometimes where I'm just like, you know, in a cutscene essentially where I'm following an NPC and I'm choking to death because my dude I can't find filters, you know. But now in Exodus, it's like, no, you just pull out your backpack, you craft a filter, pop it in, you know, like, oh, you're out of health, you know, out of health packs or whatever, you just pull out the backpack, you craft a health pack. Rad, dude. Like, perfect, you know. That's
I even got an achievement for one part where like I was choking to death, and I stopped, threw the backpack down, made a filter, put the filter on. I got achievement for that, for like putting one on for the last second.
Yep. Perfect.
You know, the only thing that was kind of a bummer though is that like you couldn't craft ammo other than like the one gun. I felt that was a little bit of a kind of a bummer, because it's like you always had to find like a workbench, you know. Which I think it should have been the other way around. You should have been able to craft ammo out of the backpack, but then when you found the workbench, that's when you could put all the parts that you've collected onto your guns. But they did it the other way around, where I can add the parts onto my guns out of my backpack, which seems strange, but I can't just make regular ammo out of the backpack. You know, so the backpack was really only good for filters and med packs. And I will say, in this game, filters were not nearly as big of a deal as the other two games.
No.
I don't think, other than like that one part that I needed the filter, and I think it was only because I drove into the radiation area. in this game, it was like I always had way more filters than I even needed. Like
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like fully stocked on that. They definitely minus that concept down a little bit more in this
Oh
one.
yeah, yeah, quite a bit. I'd say the early game, like my favorite weapon early game was just the air pump rifle thing that you get, like right
Yeah.
off the bat, because that was one type of ammo that you could craft is the little metal balls or whatever, for that gun. So, um, I use that for fucking probably more than half of the game, before I finally started switching out to other weapons because that's the other thing this game brings is a billion different weapon types, man. And like they're all unique and they're fun and they all like shoot the I mean, you have essentially a shotgun, an assault rifle, a pistol,
Sniper.
sniper, like but that's like essentially it, I
I
guess,
think
for
that's
your
it though.
ammo
Yeah.
types, essentially,
Yeah.
and then you get variants of those things, out there in the world. But that paired with its customization stuff within the crafting systems and all that, I thought was super neat to be able to customize a weapon. Like I remember running around with an AK silence long, like extended mag, like extra grips and all the shit, but I remember it had this fucking this um night vision sight on it or whatever, and it was just awful to use like in the section that I was playing through because it was super zoomed in, and the section I was playing in was lit up anyway, so I couldn't see anything as I was ADSing. So it's like, but to be able to go to a crafting bench, and this is something that I wish you could do through your
Well, the
backpack.
upside though, as I say, you could do it through the backpack. You could take the scope off in the backpack.
You can.
Yeah, because I
Oh,
I, I did
I
that a
guess I
couple
never
times
tried.
because I
Okay.
would have like a certain feature. Well, I realized that I didn't really need to carry a sniper rifle because if I ever needed one, I would just throw the backpack down. I could put the scope on, and then I could use it there. 'Cause most of
Oh,
the time, I mostly don't, especially since I just mostly don't need the sniper rifle. It's for the most part the game's
yeah.
too close quarters, and it's
Yep.
just cumbersome.
Yep.
There's like a
Yep.
couple moments where it's kind of nice, but even
Oh, I
still,
had
you could.
no idea. I didn't know you could take off scopes because that was
Yeah,
annoying me through that. Like I remember because I have a note on that going like, God, this is so fucking annoying that I gotta wait till I get to a crafting bench to pull it off. Okay, so anyways, me
yeah.
being dumb, I guess. So, but
Yeah, that was the one that you could. I just feel like you should. I think they almost should have got rid of the bench, and you should have just been able to craft everything out of the backpack. I think
yeah,
it's just once it kind of goes with the same thing like the button combinations, where sometimes they had way too many things. They almost needed just to simplify it. I think just like pick one or the other and just kind of go
yeah,
with it. But and I think the backpack's the way to go. I just like the idea that like and every single time maybe you come back to the train, you get an upgrade for your backpack, so then you can craft
yeah.
more. Like that should have been kind of how it is.
Well, it feels like simultaneously at the same time, it feels like the people that, came over from Stalker, like were developing the sections of this game that are semi-open world and, like that whole section of the game. Meanwhile, like the original staff is still doing what Metro's always done in terms of linear experience of what because this game like starts off super narrow and then it goes super wide and then it sucks back to a super narrow linear experience and it goes super wide again. It just does this just over and over, like and not that it's bad, it's actually a really good mix of everything. I thought that the flow throughout all this was actually really good, b- but again, like with the stalker side of things, like just thinking about like how part of this development team was that like this was their chance to do that, and I think they were super successful at it.
Hmm.
Telling stories in an open world cannot be easy because you never know where your player is going to go. Like are they just going to mainline the main quest? Are they actually going to take the time to find POIs or naturally come across them and then fully, like see the environment, interact with the NPCs that are there? Even in this very first section of the Volga or whatever, I remember specifically the tower that you have to go to or whatever, and or at least like one of your comrades like calls out this particular tower that you can go to. You go to this tower and there's like slaves in there or whatever. They're all caged up and whatnot. Meanwhile, there's like all these slavers on the outside of them. And it's like, then you kind of have like, as a player, like a moral choice of like, do I go knock out these guys? Do I kill them? Do I save the slaves? Do I leave them alone? All those like natural type things like that happen throughout, the totality of that experience. I thought was like so neat for the player. So again, like I don't know what point I was going at with all, but the amount of variety that this brings as an open world without faltering, without falling on its face is really impressive, I guess is
Well,
what I'm
and I
getting
think the
at.
upside is because the way the story works, the open world's very well designed because pretty much once again, you're in this train, and I guess the way it kind of starts the story off that leads us to why we're on a train is that Artyom pretty much wants to see the rest of Russia. He has this he has a dream that
Mhm.
there's gonna be other things out there beyond the metro and so on like that. And even when you start off, it's like Anna from the last one or whatever. That's now Artyom's wife and so on like that. And I kind of like,
Mhm.
oh, there it is. And you're riding along with her dad on the train, and he's the colonel and everything like that. And there's a whole ragtag group of guys, including an American guy voiced by um, Spike from Cowboy Bebop. John Blank on his name also. Steve Bloom,
Mhm.
and which you can always tell him right off the bat whenever you hear his voice. It's just like
Yep.
it like pierces through everything. Because at first
Yep.
it's like, wow, he almost like breaks the fourth wall because he's like the first non-Russian character in there. And
Yeah.
for a while there, I just didn't know because they never said that he was not Russian for like ever.
Mhm.
So I was just like, is Steve just not? I'm not doing the Russian accent. You
Yeah.
got me. I'm not doing it.
Yep. Yep.
You're
Yep.
gonna get the Wolverine Spike voice,
Yeah.
But so you have this cool group and you're traveling along, and pretty much what happens is at some point you get to a place where the train sort of breaks down, and it's kind of like, hey, Artyom, you know what? You got legs on you, and you're good at shooting people. How about you go out and explore this area, get us some fuel, get us some water, and all this stuff. And so it has a logical way that the story goes. So you go out, you do the missions, then you come back to the train, you know, reconverge, and then do it again. And
Yeah.
then finally, once all the pieces are together, then we could travel on. So it
Yep.
makes kind of sense so that it's not like one of those ones where you necessarily miss stuff. I mean, you could
Yeah.
miss stuff, but it doesn't have anything that affects that core story.
Right. Right. Yeah. You can't miss core elements of this story, just the way that it is designed. And again, like it's super subjective to the individual player that's actually playing it, because like I could see how this probably could probably burn. I mean, the fact that I did 20 hours, through DLC and everything as well, don't get me wrong, this experience probably took me about 13, I would say, like outright. If I would have spent more time in the desert zone, like I could easily see how this game could keep you busy for probably 20 plus, like throughout a lot of it. And again, just like it's content, like the amount of content that exists here is just insane. Even just so I just did I guess I don't know if it's the summer that goes into the one portion where you go see the government or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But even that summer section where you're in the train and you're talking to the people and whatnot, like you start with Anna and then you kind of move your way through the train. So I literally, like, this afternoon, I wanted to sit down and listen to all the dialogue throughout all of that whole section, and I probably sat there for fucking 40 minutes, like there is so much content. There's so much content. It's insane, like the amount of shit that's in this game. So
Well, it's funny. I just actually pulled up my PlayStation real quick. I was like, I wonder if it popped up on there. So it says it put 21 hours into this. So
okay.
that's
Yeah.
actually more than I thought. I didn't think it was that long, but I mean that's with the DLCs and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
Um, so because the DLCs are probably at least 6 hours or
Mhm.
so of that, 7 hours maybe. So but even still, like the nice thing though is it wasn't still too overwhelming because sometimes that's the other thing. You hear that, oh, it's open world and so on like that. Next thing you know, you're like, oh, it's gonna be 30 plus hours,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like in so many games, I hate to sort of say it, like, but is it 30 plus hours of good content?
Mhm.
It's even like some
Mhm.
RPGs, it's like one of those ones that's like you're better off being short and sweet at like 20 hours and dragging the
Yeah.
player on to 40 hours of a bunch of nonsense,
Yep.
you know.
Yep. Yep. No,
And this one just
absolutely.
dials in there. But yeah, you if you really wanted to, you could sit because people will just sit there and blab to you forever, in some places
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatnot. And some of it's a little bit more interesting than others and whatnot. There's one that comes up way later. Did you do the one where there was that crazy guy who was having the tea party with his dead like comrades?
Yes.
And you
Yeah.
could sit
Yeah.
down and like I sat there and listened to the whole thing. You got an achievement for it too.
Yep.
And even
Yep.
pull it like at some point he's like, here, play the guitar, Artyom, and he starts playing the guitar and
Yep.
everything like that.
Yep.
But I really just wanted to see where that one went. That was one of those ones because there's
Yeah.
some conversations that's like, you're not
Yeah.
really probably too interesting. But this one was just so weird that I was like, let's see where this tea party guy
Yeah.
goes and his dead corpse buddies that he has sitting next to him.
Yep. Yeah, that one was really cool, and that's just like one example of probably tens, that
Yeah.
exists throughout the game. Like, I mean, there's just so much of that. um but I'm trying to think if there's like any other like core mechanical things or anything else to like really talk about? I guess I couldn't remember. So when your mask breaks in this game, so you've like the last two games through the Redux versions, we were able to like wipe our mask screens, so
Mhm.
we can do that here too, right? So you can always do that. I can't remember. Does your mask break in the other games
No, that was a
the
new
way
feature
that this
because
does? Okay,
that threw me off for a moment because I was like, "What the hell?" I kept switching, putting filters on. I'm like, "Why is my character suffocating?"
right.
And then like it finally, I think, popped up. It said, "Oh, hold L1." Of course, hold
Yeah,
L1. Why would it? It's
yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
another multiple command button thing
yeah,
here,
yeah,
And then you could put a little tape on there, which I thought was kind of
yeah,
neat. I think they should have
yeah,
done it where because it was always the same. It was always just that one on the left
yeah,
side bottom. They should have had it where like because you can repair your guns and your mask and everything in this game, they should have made it where like I know it would have been kind of like a cluster, but you should have had like three little patches on it, like
yeah,
if you really took
yeah.
that mask to the limit.
Yep. Yep. No, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. But again, just little elements like that that exist, because that tripped me out too. I was like running around, getting smacked around by those like humanoid zombie looking, ghoul looking things or whatever. And Artyom just starts coughing and he's just like and it's exactly the same thing. I'm changing out my filters and I'm like, what is I've got 5 minutes on my filter. Like, what is happening? Like why is and then and he dies and I'm like, okay. And then a tooltip pops up and it says, hey, hold G to essentially slap this little piece of tape on your, you had a hole in the left side or so, so like the next time I saw that I was like, oh cool, and you like slap the tape on, everything's
Yeah.
fine at that point. But again, it's just like those little teeny little things that somebody thought about in that development studio. They're just like, that'd be kind of neat, like so.
Well, I felt
But
like, what's one more layer we can add to the mask? Because that's
right.
sort of like the Metro thing is like, the really, gas mask thing that has all like
Hmm.
by wiping it, put a little piece of tape on it, changing
Yeah.
the filters. It has just that system,
Yeah.
you know.
And I really, really enjoyed the I'm not gonna say it's a Resident Evil nod whatsoever, but just like the fact that you can find a new armor piece or something that just has a little extra like storage for your ammo or something. It's kind of like picking up, like a hip pack or something and like,
Mhm.
Resident Evil 2 or something, like I really enjoyed that too. Like having armor pieces, like your gas mask throughout the totality of the game like starts off as just a regular ass gas mask. By the end of it, it's just like an armored like steel fucking gas mask and shit, like super cool, like power progression stuff throughout the whole play experience. I thought was super neat. But
Yeah, no, I liked all those little upgrades. And that was one of the things I did notice. A lot of times in some of those like random question mark things on the open world areas, sometimes you would find like a new piece for like your helmet or body armor or something in
mhm,
there. So that would make it kind of worthwhile too. And I said a
yep,
lot of them times you go in there, it's just you more just collect resources. You're like, okay, cool. Did I need this? Not necessarily, but okay, that's fine. But then the other ones, there is stuff like that.
yep, yep. So yeah, I guess that's kind of like everything, like mechanically, why, like anything that's like evolved or changed or has been modified since Last Light. That's really all the core like mechanical things I can really think of. So, but this story though, dude, oh my god. This whole time, like we're told from Metro 2033 all the way through Last Light, like this is it. This is humanity's bastion. This is it. There's 40,000 people left over. That's it. Meanwhile, like I was mentioning earlier in the episode, like, Artyom's curiosity drives so much of the Metro universe, like in general. And for this one, you essentially like start off with like Artyom like out in on the surface again, and he's got this little like radio pack and he's like messing around with it, trying to get a radio signal or whatever, and he like after like I'm pretty sure you're like with Anna at this point too, and you're like coming back and she's explaining to you about how like, oh, dad's about to upgrade us to go to like live in this better flat essentially within the metro, like we're gonna get a bedroom now and blah 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 and all this shit, and it's just like explaining like their lives of like living in the metro and coming down, finally getting back into the metro setting and whatnot. And then we start to recognize that Artyom's been doing this shit a lot. He's been going to the surface a lot because like the doctor's fucking pissed at him. Everybody's pissed at him because he keeps getting irradiated and just like, there's only so much blood available, like,
Yeah, he just seems like once again the special ed guy with his radio up there,
Yep.
like doesn't speak, the mute.
Yep.
Damn it, Artyom, did you go back up to the surface again?
Yep.
It's like, why is like the one chick that's here goes for that guy?
Yeah. Yep.
He's really eloquent when he writes though.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
his
Exactly.
journal.
Yeah. He's got some killer monologue, man.
But yeah, so Artyom just he's a believer that there's hope out there and so on. And so somehow, some way, he convinces everybody else to go on this crusade to explore the rest of Russia. And I can't remember. Does he finally get a signal? Is that kind of what it is? And that kind of says like, "Hey,
So
let's."
no, what happens is
Because
he and
now
Anna.
it's been a moment since I played the beginning of this game.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a whole bunch that goes on that I won't like really go into extreme detail with because we'll be sitting here for 15 hours explaining this game. But yes, there's a journey of him and Anna, like getting captured by and Anza or whatever, like that one
Oh
faction.
yeah,
They had captured like two people that like didn't recognize who you weren't part of the metro, so you start to recognize at that point of like, oh shit, these people aren't from here, like where are they from and whatnot, like, oh, there's an outside world. This old woman's like explaining it to you and whatnot. Anza like takes him out, and you're basically like over this like death pit, essentially, of like all these bodies and whatnot. Soldiers pull out the guns on those two innocent people or whatever. Artyom gets involved. Artyom gets shot, like he falls into
yeah,
the
that's
pit.
right.
People fall down, like he's crawling away and blah blah blah. So anyways, Artyom starts to like, there's so many pieces of his like thoughts about, is there an outside world? Does people exist outside of the metro and whatnot? And he's gathering all these little individual pieces but hasn't been able to tell like the full story. And essentially, like by the end of this whole section, Anna and him are outside again, and they see a train go by. And there's like, like the train's like plowing through Moscow, and they're like, holy shit, like there's actually people and blah blah blah. um so that's where they go back to Miller and whatnot, tell Miller about it, yada yada. And then this is kind of like where this whole journey like really starts, like you have to go find a train. And the whole train section part of this, like right at the very beginning. So like you go and you like rob this fucking train essentially. You have to fight your way through this like mass compound, essentially. It's just like a very classic metro level. And you rob this train and you're like leaving, and then it's like I can't remember if it was the Nazis or the Reds or whoever it was, whatever the faction was, but they send the fucking train after you. and it's like this just classic, just like train by train, just going down, like the train tracks and whatnot. Artyom like jumps over to the enemy train, sneaks his way through. He's just like murdering people as he's making his way through, throws the fucking C4 into the train's like, engine bay and explodes and it's all bombastic and just super fucking cool intro, man. Like I really, really enjoyed the whole, start of this. But in that compound, that's where Artyom like actually legitimately finds out like, oh fuck, the Russian government has been suppressing all of us with radio jammers and blah 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 because they want the rest of the world to think that everybody in Russia is dead. Oh shit, the Americans are still alive. Oh shit, the French are still alive. The blah blah blah, and like you're like learning all these things. So that's where this journey like just really just kicks into high gear, because it's like, oh fuck, like Artyom's actually gonna leave the metro. Like he's finally doing it,
Yeah, that's right. Because that's almost like the real major story moment is when you realize that, like, oh, this whole time the radio signals have just been jammed, for Russia trying to protect itself. But that means that there's way more people than we actually thought, and let's go out and see if we can find a better place to live and so on like that. And as we kind of go through these areas, we realize a lot of these places are very hostile to be expected, because I think almost there's like once you finally get that train. And once you start going ahead, then you start to go to the facility that's got the beacon where it's like, oh, we got, the almost like the safety bunker here where, we got it. We can take care of everybody. We have all the supplies and so on like that. And so it's like, oh, that sounds good. And the colonel's like, I'll go talk to him, and so on. And that's the one where you go in there and they're just like, oh, no. We're going to capture you guys. And guess what? We are a bunch of cannibals and we just lead people in and, we eat them.
Yep. And that's literally what I was just playing right before this, just to kind of like recapture like what that whole mission set was. And like Spence is saying, like Miller is essentially like just a diehard Soviet loyalist. Like he's
Mhm.
just all about his government, and yep, they're gonna take care of us. Yep, we got to get here, take the train here, blah blah blah. Um, and this whole section, dude, it's so cool. So I was watching a development documentary on this game and whatnot. This whole level is actually D6 from the original game. It's the same level and whatnot. They just redid everything. They just prettied everything up and whatnot. And I remember very specifically when I first got to this section like a week or so ago, and those spiral elevators that you can sit on, like the little train car things that kind of like spiral up and whatnot, because that's in the D6 sections of the of the original games. I was like, how funny, like they, now understanding like no, they properly reuse those assets. Like they
Yeah.
reuse that level to make a new level. I thought it was super cool, so
Yeah, no, I think that's neat. It's like you stack it on top, and it's like, yeah, you kind of maximize even more on it.
yeah,
You get some kind of rotoscoping in a sense going on level design.
yep, yep. But this whole section was super cool. So like we essentially like show up like after like this like long arduous journey. This is immediately after the first open world section, and you're finally like coming to the point where it's like cool, we're finally getting to where the government is and we can ask the questions that we need to ask. And it's like the game is essentially like trying to set up like, oh, this is your final stop, this is like the end or whatever. You've only been playing probably 10 hours at this point, so you know that it's not. But like, but anyways, in terms of Artyom and Miller and everybody, and then they finally show up, and then like, oh shit, no, this is the government. Like, these are the actual government people and whatnot. But oh fuck, like they're cannibals. Like they're eating people and shit, And Anna gets captured. Like you're fighting your way through this just cannibalized just fortress of just crazy people with like hatchets and knives and shit, like running around after you. And again, like with the PC enhanced version of this, like, you can see like their individual teeth and how fucked up and marred they are and shit, like as they're chasing after you, and they're like, like it's, I don't know, it's pretty wild
That's pretty
design. I
sweet.
thought it was super cool.
Those are probably details you got. I mean, I might have been able to see some of that in the PS4 one, but I bet you those
Mhm.
are the details that get enhanced even more.
Yep. Yep. And I love the end of this too, because like this just like Anna, I mean, Anna's always been kind of a badass throughout like all the games and whatnot, but this whole section, so there's a guy called the minister or whatever, and he's like the leader of everything in this establishment. And when you finally come back to her, like, so after she gets captured and taken away, like you and the boys are essentially like, we got to go get Anna back and get the fuck out of here, like essentially. And so you finally come across her and whatnot, and you save her essentially, and that minister starts fighting you, so like he's beating you up or whatever, and essentially is like about to kill your ass. And then I'll especially on first run of this, like first watch of this, I was so fucking proud of this chick. She walks up behind him, grabs a knife, throws it against his throat and whatnot, and he's just like, I can tell you what's wrong, I can tell you what's wrong. There's a piece that we missed in the Volga. Anna's is got very, very sick in the Volga. She got something,
Yeah.
she inhaled something into her lungs, and she's like very sick. Like she's coughing up blood a lot and shit like that. So with this doctor, he ran tests on her because he doesn't want to eat her until he knows what the fuck's in her, so and whatnot, So, anyways, back to the knife scene, has it up against his throat, and he's like, I know what's wrong, I know what's wrong. And she just basically just says something to the effect of like, silence, you pig, or whatever the fuck he said. And she just fucking just just takes him out. And I was like, hell yeah. you know so cool, so cool.
Well, and still at this point, it's like Anna's just having this little bit of a cough in the background, but it's not. It's so in the background that you're almost kind of not noticing. You're like, we're in the metro. Everybody probably has a cough. I'm used
Yeah,
to my character suffocating every once in a while out there, so it doesn't
yeah,
seem as much of a big deal,
yeah,
But it just progressively gets more and more built up, and then I feel like you learn more details farther in the game about what's going on at these parts here that is clearly explained at first, and
oh
it
yeah,
comes more together as the game goes down.
yep, yep. Yeah, and I still I mean, even when we do get like towards the ending and whatnot, I still have a handful of questions about the end that just still like got to me. But anyway, so that was the Yamato. This is like spring essentially. So that's the other piece about this game. So like we start off in winter, we go through like spring, we go through summer, we go through fall, we go back to winter. So like this is
Yeah.
over the course of like a total calendar year and whatnot. And again, very well paced throughout. Um,
And of course, when you're in summer, for some reason, you have to hit the desert.
yeah, yep,
Yeah, that's what you said. It's going to be as bright as all can be, and so on.
yep,
But I like because in there, because that's where you meet Olga in the desert portion, and she's kind of a really cool character. At first, I thought it was an old lady when she was on the intercom, and that's what it was.
mhm,
And then when you kind of go up there, like, oh, that's not an old lady, because it made it sound like it was an old lady, like, hey, get these people out of here.
yep, yep,
And I was like, oh, okay, we'll go up there. And then you kind of see it's like, oh, no, she's more like these, like, I'm going to say like a Mongolian Russian. That's like the best way to sort of say it.
yeah, yeah,
And she's got this cool tower base on top of the mountain there, and so on. And of course, this is where you battle the slave trader kind of guys, which has
yeah,
this very Mad Max kind of theme where this guy's
yes,
captured a bunch of people. Because that's kind of cool thing is each area, so if you had the cannibalist, at the what was it, Yamata? What was that
yeah,
thing called again? Yeah,
Yamato,
Yamata. Yeah, so you had those, and then the previous area where you're kind of in like the almost like Russian Bayou kind of section, you have the cultists. Like that's kind of like the main thing. You're battling these like religious kind of freak people and so on.
and they're super interesting too, because we kind of skipped over that whole
Yeah,
section, but the religious freaks at the beginning of the game or whatever, essentially like their whole thing is like they're just anti-technology. They just fucking hate technology and whatnot, like fuck cell phones and the internet and stuff. Like it's essentially like what it feels like. But yeah, that's their whole thing. But the other thing that you're also kind of seeing too is like there was very fragile moral grounds within the metro of what's right and wrong, right? Like who's good, who's bad, like you can look at any one faction, see the good qualities, the bad qualities, whatever. It's equally like agreed upon that, the Spartan group, the order, like are the good guys and whatever. But out here in the wilds and whatnot, it's like when you come across that group of those crazy religious fanatics and whatnot, it's like they don't immediately become a threat because they welcome you into their home, like right off the bat. Like
yeah,
they see you on the train and they're looking through the little binoculars and whatnot, and the lady's waving you over with the white flag, and like come to us and whatnot. And then even like exploring through that section and whatever, it's like as soon as you get seen, of course they're gonna attack you and whatnot, but you have a choice at this point too to be able to knock them out or physically kill them if you're sneaking, or like pull out your guns and fire on them and whatnot. So again, like the open sections of all these new factions that we're coming across like was a really like weird like moral conundrum for me, because it's like of course they're enemies because I don't know them, they don't know me, like, but are they really? Like I
yeah,
mean
yeah.
they're
They're
just
almost just protecting
yeah,
like the game is kind of designed where like they're almost kind of protecting. Even though I remember the cultists, I think because they tell you that like, oh, you can put your gun down and so on like that and so
mhm,
on. So I did that and I walked up to one of them and then they started shooting at me. I'm like, well, I guess here it goes. I
yep,
thought I did the right thing.
yep. But no, this next section that you're talking about was summer. Brief correction. Olga comes. She's the forest lady that comes in the next section in
Oh,
autumn.
that's
This
right. Okay,
her
what's
name's Giul or something. It's Giul. However you
that's right.
pronounce it, Giul or whatever. So, but
Yeah. Because that's right. She's here and yeah. Well, once again, I like all these like side characters and everything in this one
yeah,
quite a bit.
yeah,
And
she
yeah,
is a
her whole
bad.
thing is that yeah, she's a badass. She's got this big old tower house that she's living in. I just love the cool design to everything that's like in this like, southern eastern part of Russia. And of course, there's these slavers that once again have a very Mad Max vibe. They remind me of Raiders also from
Hmm.
Fallout. And of
Yeah,
course, they're capturing people. They literally have all like the women used as like Harlems and all kinds of stuff there. And there's just one dude at the top of this tower. So these guys kind of come across as clearly okay, they're bad guys. Not they're not like
yeah,
the cultist people that you're kind of like you feel kind of bad for and so on in a sense. Even though at the second they start shooting me, I don't feel bad for them anymore. You shoot at me, that's it. You're done.
yep, yep. Yeah,
You're
and
lucky I'll punch you in the face.
So that's something that came back too. So this one I would say is a lot more pronounced when it comes to its karma system. So that's like one more mechanic that we need to talk about briefly before we continue on. So
Yeah, the old hidden like karma system.
but at least here, so like in Last Light, for example, so I found this out in a video that Last Light's karma system is mostly centered around you standing around listening to NPCs. A huge portion of that karma system is centered around that. Here, anyways, it's like if you have the choice to kill or not, you know, like, and this happens pretty often too. So you'll be clearing a camp of bona fide enemies, you know, and your karma is not getting affected by this whatsoever. You're killing everything. But you get down to the last soldier and he goes, "Hold on, man, hold on.
Yeah.
I surrender. I say," and he throws his gun down and he has his hands up and whatnot. If you shoot that man at that time, or if you walk up to him and stab him in the fucking neck or whatever, your karma is going to go down. But you equally have the choice of like not doing anything, you know, leaving him alone, or walking up and just punching his lights out, you know, and just like literally knocking him out. um so again, like more moral karma things, you know, like that happen throughout the totality of this play experience. But um which also boils into main characters too. So one there's a AB choice character that you have in this first section or whatever, named Duke. Duke is the young guy of the Aurora, you know, and whatnot. Young guy, part of the part of this crew. And it essentially, like, Miller, you know, like the leader essentially tells you, like, you're going with Duke to go do this mission where you're going to go lower the bridge and allow the train through so we can get to the government till we get to this next section and whatnot. Don't go crazy. Don't teach him bad ways. Teach him how to be a soldier, you know, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, you know, is like what Miller is essentially telling you. So as I was going through this, I was like, oh, I'm going to try to sneak through everything. And inevitably, I finally got caught. It turned into a big gunfight. God damn it, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, the consequence of that is that Duke dies, you know,
Yeah.
and whereas if I would have snuck throughout the whole mission and whatnot, never got caught, never got seen, and made it to the final boss, you know, like, or the final cutscene or whatever, Duke lives at that point and he jumps down onto the train with you. Whereas, you know, like the scene that I got is, you know, we run into the main leader of the tower and whatnot. He screams down to all of his people, just like fire, fire, you know, and just like every, you know, and Duke gets lit up, and, you know, like Artyom falls off the edge of this thing, lands on the train, takes off. Meanwhile, you know, Duke's still up in the tower, and you're just like, see ya, you know, like, so there's a bit of like moral, you know, choices, things that you can do, or mechanical choices, things that you can do that will like drastically affect, you know, your story of this game, which I thought was really, actually really good, you know, in my opinion.
Well, and I think this thing, because that happened to me as well too. Duke didn't make it, and I think that's the number one thing that changed my ending. Because I
Mhm.
was really good about, like, I never killed any of the guys when they
Yep.
surrendered, and I really like that. I like that concept because then I knew that I cleared an area when I heard that
Yeah.
guy
Yep.
say that.
Yep.
So I was like,
Yep.
perfect. And then generally I'd go up and punch the guy in the face just, you know, because I want
Yeah.
his stuff.
Yeah. You want to loot his body still, you
But
know?
but if I didn't find him, I didn't worry about it either too, because I just knew that like nobody else is gonna be shooting me now. So I thought
Yep.
that was a cool concept there. I think I only got one accidental, like where I shot like a civilian just, you know, in the crossfire, because I remember one
Yeah.
time my screen flashed,
Yep.
you know. But beyond that, like I thought I played it pretty much about as like safe as you possibly could. But I think that one Duke thing, because that same thing kind of happened to me too. It's like, you know, you're sneaking through, and then all it takes is one guy to see you, and it's like, well, there goes that.
Yep.
Guess what?
Yep.
Backed myself up in the corner. Like the same tactics that you could use on the other two metros worked on this
Yeah.
one too.
Yep.
Back yourself up in the corner. Except for I do notice the guys don't continuously run in like they did in the other two. Sometimes you
Yeah.
have to go hunt them down yourself.
Yep. Yep.
You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. The AI has improved a bit.
Yeah,
This one.
because the other one would just be like, oh, okay, corner,
Yep.
aim, bam, 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 and
Yep.
just come on,
Yep.
keep running in here.
Yeah.
The only thing that might get me is if I run out of ammo.
Yeah. No, and admittedly, like, you know, yet again, I'm, you know, playing on mouse and keyboard and whatnot. I'm starting to recognize, like, in my older age, that FPS games are literally point and click games. I mean, like, they're just literally point and click games, you know. Like, and you know, and Metro is not especially hard of a FPS game to begin with. You know, like, there's some elements of shooting where, you know, like recoil and, you know, like bullet drop and shit like that. You know, like those things exist, but like with how fast enemies go down, it's not even a thought. So like when I say like more than half my experience was played with that fucking pump rifle thing, I would just pump it to its max, aim down, and I just got a little red dot, and I can see forever because I'm playing in 1440p with fucking ray tracing on and shit. I can see forever away, and I just wait for the little headlight, to kind of look towards me, and it's like, well, just boop, 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 and just point click, point click, point click. Combat really wasn't that bad, However, when them fucking spiders came back, those little assholes that you got to spray, like hit with the fucking flashlight and show their belly, fuck those things, man.
Yeah, those and then the juggernaut guys that they have in this one, like, talk about ammo sucks. Like, they almost took so much ammo. I didn't know if you could kill them at first because I was like, dude, how many shotgun shots is this guy gonna take?
Yep.
It was just like,
that's a whole other piece to talk about is the freaking fauna in this game, dude. So I mean, like this Volga section that we're talking about, as you described, I love the Russian Bayou. That's perfect.
No, that's what it felt like. It was like on the Russian Bayou, I got my rowboats and everything like that.
So when you go out to that church, and like you explore the whole thing, you get through that whole section and whatnot, and you're on your way back. You are in a paddle boat and whatnot, and and there's like a canoe basically, and as you're like going back towards the Aurora, it's like you see this just massive catfish, just fucking insanely large catfish. Just what? It's Resident Evil 4, dude. Like it's the same basic scene, essentially. And this thing just grabs the front of your boat and tosses it over, and Artyom has to like climb back onto land real quick and blah blah blah. That thing, dude, like. So I know you can kill it because I saw the achievement for it. I personally have not done that yet. But what I did do, that honestly, like, because there's a bunch of fauna and a bunch of shit that happens in this game that's like legitimately scary. Standing on the embankment, and I got that stupid pump rifle out, and I'm shooting at it, and I'm going ping, 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 and I'm seeing just hit marker, hit marker, hit marker, and then all of a sudden it just goes underwater, and it just disappears out of my view, and I'm like, huh, that's weird. And I start to turn around, I start to back up, and you just hear, like water building up, so something's moving. And I fucking turn around. This point, I'm like 15 feet onto land at this point. The fish jumps onto land, like slides towards me, like takes a chomp at me, misses, and then rolls back into the water and swims away. And I was just like, what?
Yes, they just keep coming after you.
Like, there's just so much cool stuff like that in this game, dude. The fauna, we'll get to it when we get to because probably my next favorite is the forest section where you go and fight the massive bear thing and whatnot. Like that bear fight was so cool.
Oh, that one was sweet. I was just checking to see if I did get that achievement for that thing. I don't think I see it on there, but
yeah. Well, there is an achievement for it. I know you can kill that catfish.
Yeah, unless it's one that there was like 2 hidden ones I saw, but
yeah. But
I don't know if I got it. But yeah, like when they do have when you do have to fight kind of like the animal creatures, they are pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a section too. So midway through the Volga area, you have to go find the powered train car. And you have to do that because you have to pick up a passenger car to.
I did get it. I see it. I killed the catfish. Sorry, I had
You did? Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I couldn't remember if I did or not, but yeah.
Yeah. But you have to go get a passenger car to tie into the Aurora because you found a woman and her daughter essentially like in the camp, or in the church rather or whatever. So you save them from there. So
which I like how like okay, because at first it's like it's pretty much it's you, your father-in-law, Anna, and all these guys, and you could tell the guys like, man, I wish I had a woman too. Yep. Yeah, why is Artyom, that mute gonna be so cool?
Yep.
And then it's like it goes on. It's like everybody else is like, oh, cool, a woman, and it's like, well, I'm gonna marry her. Like it's like, you gonna look for anybody else? Nope.
Yep. Freaking gotcha.
What's he gonna do? Say no? Like I just saved her life.
Yeah, exactly. But on the way to go get the powered train car, this is where I was struggling to remember when I was trying to tell you about that section too. So we've seen the catfish at this point. I haven't personally killed it yet. you go to this like warehouse looking area or whatever. It's very vertical. You have to kind of go up and down. You have to kind of get down close to the water, and then you got to climb up onto these rafters and move across and blah blah blah. And the whole time you're fighting these, like, the best way I can describe them is that anybody that's familiar with Fallout are ghouls. They just look like ghouls, pretty much. They're just humanoid
Yeah.
zombie like creatures. And they're everywhere in this section. You have to fight a shit ton of them. And I'm making my way through this freaking section, and again, I had another one of those jump scare moments where a couple ghouls are right in front of me, and I'm like crouched and I'm sneaking, and I got my little air pump rifle out, and I'm like aiming for their head. And I'm just trying to get a perfect angle on them so I can go pop, pop, like hit both of them. And I take like one more step forward, and then a freaking fish just like out of the water and just like grabs both of them and rips them away and stuff. And I'm just like, oh my god, panic moment, just like sprint away real quick and whatnot. And as I'm sprinting, there's like two more zombies in front of me, and there's a brick wall with like a couple bricks missing, and then another one just like massive fish head just right through the freaking wall, grabs those and sucks them back. The set piece moments that they have in this game that is scripted like that is so insanely cinematic and just gets your heart pumping. Feels so good to be, just sprinting through this environment. And like, I just love it, dude. This is like the perfect way that Metro could have gone, in my opinion, based off the original two games. Like, I really enjoy it.
It makes for a really good trilogy. And I will say, I think there's actually even more horror elements in this one than even the first two. I mean, they all have, a good horror, line through the whole thing, but this one's definitely got some moments where it's like, oh shit, that like came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting that. And especially as you are battling through all these ghouls and so on like that, pretty much just ammo suckers is kind of like what I look at. Because when I'm in the open world, I don't shoot any of these things. I'm like, dude, that's how you lose all your ammo right there.
Yep.
Because they don't drop a single thing. They're like not worth it. You can't even get scrap or anything from them.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, so that kind of wraps that up. Now we're back in the Caspian Sea. You're talking about Goyle or whatever her name is, and the slavers, and like that whole section too, dude, was just because it is Mad Max. It's just fucking Mad Max, like to the T, and it's just perfect. It's just wonderful, I really enjoyed all the characters here. Story progression. The only thing that I didn't like is when. And it's by design. It's whenever like the sandstorms come in, especially like when you're traveling in the car and a sandstorm comes in, you can't see nothing, dude. Like nothing. Like you can barely see your feet. Like it's crazy.
Well, that is another element. They do have weather elements that happen in this game, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They don't happen like ridiculously often, but like they do come in from time to time. And yeah, once they do something, it's kind of like sometimes the best thing to do is like if you happen to just be in an area where you can sleep, just be like, yep, I'll just go the next day, and it goes away.
Yeah.
But a lot of times those places are also few and far between. So
yeah.
Because I know a lot of times like the game told you it's like, oh, you could go at nighttime and you could switch up like the enemy placements and so on like that.
Yeah.
But that's like I can't see anything at nighttime, so I'm just going the bright. I don't care. Like
really?
I want it to be daytime. I don't want monsters to be in my way. I want to travel as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Once again, I can take these guys out from a distance if need be, but I do think it was cool that they have those elements where you could kind of choose which way you want to go about, fighting people.
Yeah. The day and night cycle was actually really, really cool too, because there was a handful of sections where like you would start a quest on like during the day or something, or like late afternoon, and then like as I'm like progressing like through like a main quest or something like that, and I'm in an interior setting, and then to come out later or whatever, and now it's like 3 a.m, like I mean, so to have that like persistent environmental, the clock is always turning type style, I thought was super super cool, because I can totally see myself like going back a year from now and replaying through this game and like doing it all in the daytime, because majority of my experience in this game was all nighttime experiences, purposefully so, because I wanted to sneak, I wanted to be stealthy and all that. So
I probably played the majority of it. Like, I mean, I played quite a few at nighttime, just if that's just what it was. I didn't really worry too much about changing it, but sometimes it's like, there's a bed there, let's go to the daytime.
Yeah.
Just so I could see a little bit more and whatnot.
Yeah. And so like the whole point of like us being in the Caspian Sea area and whatnot is like it's at this point because there's like these like little like sub chapters that happen in between like major sections, and it's you on the train, and it's like you talking to the crew, and like this happens a handful like a couple times throughout the whole experience. Leading up to the Caspian Sea, like everybody is kind of questioning, like, fuck, we're kind of far. Like we've traveled quite a bit. We just figured out our government doesn't fucking exist. Like, should we really continue? Oh fuck, yeah, it's really hot out. People are dying from dehydration and shit. Like we need water. Like, oh fuck, like, do we have enough fuel to make it to our next destination? Like we need fuel. And it, again, just like sets the standard where it's like, that's what Artyom is there to do.
Yeah, pretty much. We're gonna hang out here and play cards and take a nap. Artyom, how about you go get everything for us?
Yep. Yep.
It definitely has a little bit of that where you are lifting a lot more than everyone else is here.
Yep. And then to go explore and see the Mad Maxy type stuff, the slavers, like dealing with that faction, dealing with like the shittery that exists there and whatnot. And I even love I loved being able to go around and like free some of those guys and whatnot.
Yeah,
and like
some of them
are like, from the previous zone and whatnot too, I ran into a couple, one particular, question mark on the map or whatever was two of the crazy religious fanatics from the original zone in Volga. They happen to be there caught up.
I think I found that one too, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
So
they were literally transferred.
yeah. Just continuity stuff like that I thought was super rad. Really, really cool. So anyways, yeah, so we get our water and fuel, and we continue on, and then this is kind of where we start to get towards autumn.
Yeah, well, first we got, I like that, like, when we take on this, like, the main boss here of, like, that Mad Max kind of zone, you kind of meet this dude who's pretty much got all his slaves and everything around him. He's pretty much literally has it like he's like, Tony Montana, like, on top of this. There's like a giant skull on the top of his building and everything like that.
Yep.
And his one thing is when he gets up there, he's almost impressed with you that you blasted through all his men. And so like he has no problem that you killed all of them. He thinks it's actually pretty honorable in a weird way, but he's like, okay, he's like, I'll let you go. I'll give you everything you need. You just got to give me the girl. That's all I want from you. And so on like that. And I kind of thought there was going to be a moral choice here, and there wasn't, because that would have been an interesting thing that if they're like, well, that'd be interesting if that switches the game up, but it just goes more to a cutscene, and you're like, no way. And you pretty much blast your way out of there, take him down, and, and so on. But, yeah, and you leave this area in her control now. So she frees all the slaves and does God knows what with everybody. Now she'll be the new tyrant of the zone.
Yep.
But then, after that, we finally carry on and we get into autumn and so on like that. And once again, like the Colonel is always very optimistic. We get to the next area. It's like, this next area, this is going to be it. I tell you, I know I said this the last 4 times in places we stopped, but believe me, this forest, this is going to be perfect. You and Anna are going to have a great place to live here. You can raise a bunch of grandchildren and everything, and I think this is where we learned that like Anna, that she is like seriously sick, because there's a wedding between like the one dude who never goes anywhere that marries he feels like he's always sitting inside. I don't think you ever run across him anywhere else in the thing, like some of the other characters And he ends up marrying the one lady and that you met that had a daughter, and they're having a little wedding inside, and you're drinking and everybody's hanging out and so on like that, and then Anna just like throws up a bunch of blood all over their wedding. And lo and behold, at least that girl that's getting married is a doctor of some kind.
yeah, exactly.
But you realize like, oh shit, like, this is where like you get like a bunch of that information, be like, oh yeah, this happened, a couple chapters back, and that crazy cannibal doctor, he said there was something wrong with my lungs and all this kind of stuff. So then you're like, okay, now Artyom, you got to go off and you got to go explore this forest zone and see if you can find a cure, because we have to do kind of like a departure. And I thought this forest area was going to be like the 3rd open world area. Yeah. But it's pretty straight. It looks kind of like it's going to be, but it's all in like a pathway, which at the same time, I was kind of glad. I felt like, it's one of those ones that it kept with just the 2 open world sections. And then the rest of this game kind of just goes straight regular Metro. I think was kind of fine. Like, by that point, it's like, I got all the open worldness I wanted. If there was one more open world, I mean, it probably would have been fine, but at the same time, it made it like short and sweet that like you never felt like you got too tired of it. The forest might have added too much, but instead you're throwing this forest and you actually lose all your items initially, because you and I can't remember what the other dude was that you going with. You're pretty much out there searching for stuff, and you both fall into the river and lose all kinds of stuff. And somehow, some way, one local native lady pulls you out.
Yep.
And then next thing you know, you have none of your original gear, and you get this like crossbow, which the crossbow actually is pretty badass.
Yes, I love the crossbow. The crossbow is fucking rad. Especially like being able to just like run around, especially like when you start to upgrade it, and you get the better grips and whatnot, and like just being able to like non-ADS and just run around hip firing people with that fucking thing. Like, dude, it's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah, I love that gun.
Yeah, no, it's pretty sweet. But you kind of now you're meeting new kinds of people because there's almost like these like forest sort of like native Russian people that are running around here. And once again, the colonel thinks that like we're gonna have an area to ourselves, and there's always a bunch of people there, no matter what, But there's like two sort of warring factions going on in this zone. Plus, then you got this giant mutated bear that's chasing you around throughout the level.
Yep. In the anticipation and buildup of that freaking mutant bear, because you see it so many times where you're not interacting with it, you just kind of see it off in the distance, like a little brief cutscene plays, like a bit like crossing a stream up a river or something. And you're just like, that's
some point I'm gonna find
it. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this whole section because this is where the character Olga comes into play. She's the leader of the pioneers, and the pioneers are basically just a bunch of lost kids, essentially. It's like
Hook.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which I thought was pretty cool, but yeah, I found a note that was saying because I was actually like really confused upon completing this section of this game, really like what the whole point of it was and whatnot. Thank God I had picked up a note that was referencing this. So it says something to the effect of that valley is getting poisoned by something that's upstream in the dam and all that, and that's why you go that way. Hold on, I gotta read my notes here.
Yeah, because that was definitely one of those ones that felt like a chaotic run for sure of trying to piece things together exactly.
Yeah, because there's like, there's the pioneers that, again, it's kind of like the church people from the beginning of the game. It's like you have choices of like you really shouldn't kill them, because like they're kind of innocent, but as well there's like the bandits of the area called the pirates, essentially, like are the bad guys and whatever. So anyways, it's another one of those
it's very Peter Pan-ish here.
Yeah
well, this is also the point too. I realized that I didn't know, because I thought like, okay, you can sneak up on people and you can punch them in the back of the head or knife them. This is where I realized that like I could literally punch them from the front. So there was an area where instead of, because all I had was the crossbow, and it took a little bit too long to reload by this point because I didn't have any of the upgrades. So I just ran through there. I just kept punching guys in the face, knocking them out, because when you punch them for that like brief animation, you can't really get hit. So I literally took out everybody by running around punching them in the face.
Yep. That was a tactic
and I was like,
of mine as well.
I was like, I didn't realize it doesn't work so well if guys have a bunch of guns, but when they're only firing arrows and stuff at you, it wasn't so bad.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, really, I mean, like the big highlight of this whole section for me was like I didn't really, like I said, I didn't really like capture and grasp like the characters and Olga and the one like Aurora crew member that like kind of falls in love with this chick and whatnot, because he ends up staying here.
Yeah, because once, and I wondered if that was another thing that like when we had like the different endings at the end, I was like, I wonder, can that guy, or can I take him and Olga with us, or is that like a decision choice? But I don't think so. I think that was literally what was always going to happen. Once again, I think everybody's like, oh man, Artyom's got a girl and I don't. Oh, this sucks.
Yep. Yep. But the bear fight, though, the bear fight was fucking cool. And again, just like pretty much with anything we've ever fought throughout this whole series, even the bear fight in I think it was Last Light or whatever, the last game we played. Just a really bombastic, just like because is this the one? I'm trying to remember. Is this what where it's like running through the no, that's a little bit
you
later.
Fight the bear
that's
twice.
Sam's story. That's Sam's story. Sorry.
Yeah, some of the things start to run together, but you do fight the bear twice, because I know you get an achievement for shooting the bear the first time.
Yeah, I scared off the bear in the first fight or whatever, which I'm sure that there's like a hardline cutscene or something that plays if you don't scare it off or whatever, that gets it out of there. But the actual fight itself, I thought was actually really neat. I basically ran around with the shotgun. I had this like double barrel shotgun thing where I would just run up to it, go bam, 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 bam,
Yeah,
like
that
as
shotgun,
many times as possible.
that shotgun was like a staple of my arsenal the whole game through because of
Yep.
how fast that thing reloads.
Yep.
The only weird thing though is though that's a shotgun, that shotgun has the most narrowest range. If somebody is just like one step out of the way of your crosshair, you won't even hit them with that shotgun. It's such a weird because it's like it doesn't feel shotgun-y at all. It's like almost like a glorified, like power pistol.
Yep. So,
Which I will say, I don't think I ever found any of the other shotguns that are in the other Metro games, like the 6-barrel one or anything like that. I never ran across those.
So there are attachments that you can add to this one. I didn't see the belt fed shotgun either.
Yeah,
but,
like that one that kind of that it took a long time to reload, but it was kind of nice because you could load up 6 rounds.
Yeah. Yep. But I did notice that you can do like the quad shot one. There was like a quad attachment that you could do for the barrels or whatever.
I tried that for a moment, but it fired 4 rounds like in 2 shots. So I was like, oh, this is just gonna blow through ammo. No way am I doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought it was quad shot, like it'd be like I got 1, 2, 3, 4 shots, and then I realized it fires 2 at a time. I'm like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Shotgun ammo is already sparse enough as is, and I can never carry enough.
Yep. But yet again, like I just still really enjoy that system of being able to make that choice. Like it's not like you have to just find that gun. Like you can strip that gun of that component, go to a fucking workbench, slap it onto your current shotgun and whatnot. Like I love that whole system. I thought it was super cool.
Yeah, the dismantling part was really cool because that was just the way to go.
Yep. So we kill the bear. I think this is where we hop back onto the Aurora, and the next note that I have is the Dead City. It becomes winter at this point.
Yeah, because this is we're kind of like on the last portion by this point, because now we have to go. Now I guess we're going to get the cure for Anna is what we're doing.
So we've heard probably 20 billion times about so my notes reference that Novosibirsk or whatever, and Novosibirsk is like where it's more or less like where the cure is or whatever, and it's an insanely high, like 10 times the amount of normal radiated zones for us to go to, so that's where the Dead City essentially is. So like some of the notes say like Anna's essentially like dying at this point of lung failure. Your whole mission changes, at one point to, instead of like searching for, like, I mean, I guess we're still searching for like the perfect pristine place to live and, like live on our days and whatnot. But at this point, Anna's fucking dying. We got to go save her, like that's the mainline mission at this point. So,
yeah. And the Colonel's kind of adamant about it's just him and you that are going to go do it. It's everybody else has to stay behind. So that's where you kind of you go in this really heavily snowed area. You drive the Volkswagen Russian bus up there as far as it can go. And then you go into this Dead City section.
Yep.
And I guess inside here, that's where you meet the little boy that's been living out. And he's like the last survivor of the entire city here.
And that's a really Kirill or
Kirill, that's right. Yeah.
Like that.
Kirill.
That whole part of like coming across that kid too, because it's again, we just played through the DLC where this is all shown and whatnot and how it happened and blah blah blah, but that section now after seeing the DLC is probably going to hit me really fucking hard the next time I play through that and whatnot, because you just come across this just mass bodies, something really fucking bad, a war, like something really fucking bad happened here where there's just this one child is alive, and like brutal.
And this kid's kind of he's pretty much down there, and the Colonel comes down and addresses him, and is like, well, what is your rank and everything like that, and the kid like literally salutes and goes after it like a military man and so on. Yep. But by playing that DLC, the Two Colonels one, because that's the interesting thing is you play as this kid's dad and you see the progression of how this area was a real thriving area and everybody was doing good and they were just out like burning up, all these like fungus type worm things that were living underneath there with the flamethrower. And then you realize just like a year later, it's like it all kind of goes to hell, and they start running out. They keep mentioning this green stuff, which they mentioned in the regular game too. And for some reason, it's just the radiation cure that's in like a little like injector gun.
Yep.
And at first, they have a copious amount of it, and then it gets to the point where like we're starting to run low on this and stuff. So people are like hogging it, and then the higher ups are like, you know what? There's not enough to go around, so we're taking it. We're the ones getting out of here. And all this stuff. So you start seeing where everything starts to break down, and people that were once real friendly of each other now start fighting it. And there's all sorts of chaos. And this kid just happens to be the last one of everybody here. And he's going to kind of help guide you through here so that you can find the cure and find the map piece and everything as well.
Yep. And that's essentially, I mean, like you find the cure, like you find the maps and all that. And I guess this is kind of like where your story will take different turns in terms of like the AB ending here and whatnot. So in mine, it's like I get to the point where I find the medicine and whatnot. Artyom is fucking dying. Like he is irradiated to shit. He's fucking passing in and out of consciousness and whatnot. Miller has the cure, the antidote thing or whatever.
Well, the kid he's got 3 cures left is what it is. So it seems like he's got a cure for all of us. He's got a cure for himself. And for some reason, he's really willing to give it to these 2 guys. I think about that. But so everybody's got their own. But Artyom's already used his early on. Because he's been the most infected and so on like that. And as you kind of get all this stuff and you're like breaching your way out of there and you're like almost not going to make it, like the colonel literally drags you out of here and so on like that. And then you just kind of go in and out of like sleep and you're in that Volkswagen bus again, driving through the snow. And the colonel injects one into you, which you kind of go, wait a second, that means that's his that he's injected and so on. And then you finally come to enough to drive the bus yourself. And it seems like the colonel's like passed out and the kid's just like, oh, he's just sleeping, just like father was, So you're like, oh, I know what that's going. And you drive back and you finally make it to the train. But, Artyom's just so irradiated by this point that they have this interesting thing where they're like, oh, his blood's AB positive. For some reason, I thought AB positive was the blood that you couldn't like take anybody's blood, but I guess that's the other way around. I thought O was the one that had.
Well, that's what I thought too, because it explains this at the very start of the game. When you first talk to that doctor, if you look to the right, there's a note on the table right there, and that's the first time. I actually need to look it up real quick because I saw it again today when I re-rolled through this. You actually see Artyom's full name here, and you see his blood type and his history and blah blah blah, and all his like historical notes and whatever. So anyway, sorry, but yes.
Well, somehow, some way, with AB positive, he's able to like take blood. So everybody on the train does the thing where we're just going to do a blood infusion or transfusion, and pretty much try to get rid of all the irradiated blood out of Artyom and so on like that. And in this process, Artyom keeps going in and out. Everybody keeps taking turns, giving him blood. We learn more stuff that the colonel, because one of the guys goes to the final colonel and go like, the reading was literally off the chart with the colonel for how much radiation he had. So he goes to show the colonel made the great sacrifice to get Artyom back, because, him and his daughter, that's the most important thing. If I can save these 2. And so you're going through this and everybody's doing it. Artyom's going in and out. Everybody's trying to save you. And it's kind of interesting because it keeps having these flashbacks, flash forwards. Artyom's sort of seeing his life before him and whatnot. And I think between the 2 endings, there's only like a couple sections that are really different. I think for the most part, 90% of the stuff's all kind of the same. There's just a couple scenes that add more. And then because in our game, the one dude that got stuck and didn't make it on the train, what's his name?
Duke.
I think that's the one factor that's kind of screwed both of our files over, that why we got the B ending where lo and behold, Artyom doesn't make it, even though all they try. Anna gets saved and so on like that. And so it ends with this, like they find kind of an area and everybody else is there. But there's 2 crosses, one for Anna, or one for Anna's dad, the colonel, and then one for Artyom. And it's like, he didn't make it through. But then if you were able to save Duke in a sense, which I guess is the core thing that probably changes this whole ending. I think it sounds like there's some other things too, but for the most part, I think that's really the major thing you need to do. You get that one extra person to give you a blood transfusion, which makes Artyom be able to make it. And then he becomes the new colonel of this group.
Yep. And so I haven't even seen the other ending. I never actually looked it up and whatnot, but I was reading about it, and supposedly like Artyom at the end of that narrative essentially wants to go back to Moscow to essentially tell the populace like what is actually going on and whatever, which has been a core theme of all of this. Like
Yeah.
this entire journey, they're constantly going back and forth in their heads of like, should we go back to Moscow and tell them? Should we go back? Should we go back? And I mean, inevitably they don't. Um, I didn't really know how to feel about Artyom's death in my ending. I mean, I don't think it's supposed to be the canon ending. I think he is supposed to live. I think Miller is properly supposed to die. Artyom's to live. Him and Anna go start their new life outside the metro and yada yada. Like I think that's supposed to be the canon ending.
Yeah, I definitely think so too.
But at the same time, like through all his curiosities of like, especially like getting to rerun through all three of these games, in a row, essentially, through all of his curiosities, through all of his like, character progression and, like becoming more of, an explorer and getting more hardened and like, being the soldier that he needed to be and blah, blah, blah throughout this whole journey. I think he did it, dude. He got out. He got his people out. Like, the core Spartan group of his friends are good and they're out and like so I actually kind of had this like feeling at the end of this game of just like, yeah, Artyom died, but he fucking did it. He got him out, like he completed his journey, and like I thought it was pretty neat. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that ending doesn't bother me at all because it has like a 1970s movie kind of ending by that standard when it does that, where it's just like that's how a lot of those are. Like, main character, he went through, he got everybody through, but didn't make it in the end. Hard cut the credits. There we go.
Yep.
But it definitely seems like the idea of him becoming the colonel and then taking that news back, because that is kind of a big deal, is the fact that somebody can finally let everybody in the metro know that, wait a second, we've kind of been lied to and there's actually a lot more out there and all that stuff. I think that's the big changer, which I think that's really actually what will affect that fifth game once that comes out, is that that's going to probably be the big thing there, is that like, oh yeah, people do get this news. Because I'm almost thinking that Artyom's going to be a character, him and Anna are going to be like, you're going to see them, because you actually do. Because I did watch the other ending, and as I said, once again, I think it's only a handful of cutscenes that really change it, like all of maybe like a minute, or maybe a little bit more than that, but like 2 minutes that kind of change up that, you see 90% of the same, but you see the backside of Artyom, which actually you do see Artyom's face in the two colonels for a split second, I think, too. So that's like the first time I think you see him there.
Yeah.
But I could actually see him actually appearing as a character, or him and Anna, even if Anna's the only one that talks.
Yeah. I fully believe that they will be a part of 2039 to some extent. If not deep within the lore books and the notes and things like that inevitably will exist in that game. But hopefully, like actually in person. I am after rewatching the 2039 trailer, I'm like, I had a comment to you the other day after we finished that DLC of just like, man, it would be fucking cool if they ended up taking this to the States, if they took this to the United States, because one of the DLCs kind of ends there in a particular ending that you can get. But after watching the 2039 trailer, it's like, no, it's very obvious. This is still, very much, like in Moscow, in, that general area and whatnot. But I'm very hopeful that, because I think Exodus starts in 2035 and probably ends in 2036 or whatever, or maybe it's 2034 into 2035, whatever it is.
Well, because 34 is when there's like in the two colonels one with the kid's dad. It starts off in 34 and then it goes to 35. So then when you show up, it's probably got to be the end of 35 or something like that, if I had to guess. Okay. So it's probably going into 36 now.
Yeah. So that would give Artyom 3 years, to get back to Moscow and basically tell the populace and all that. I'm just so curious to see like where 2039 is even going to go, like and if Artyom's story is just going to be like what they did in I'll bring up like Mass Effect Andromeda, for example. Like Shepard's mentioned throughout that game, but like isn't like a core piece of what Mass Effect Andromeda is. I'm really curious if 2039 is going to just mention, Artyom as like a wives' tale type thing, or if he'll be a core pillar of that game,
Yeah. Is it going to be more of a sequel, or is it going to be more like a brand new jumping on point,
Yeah.
And
I'm
I even
kind
kind
of
of wonder with the VR game too. If like I mean, I'm not guessing he's going to show up in that game at all, but I'm guessing there'll be some notes that mention stuff of him in there.
yeah,
Because I'm
yeah,
guessing that one's going to be the one where it really just shows somebody else's like journey
right.
of the Metro.
Yeah, yeah, and I would imagine so too, because the developer and publisher, for that matter, of Awakening is completely different than 4A and Deep Silver or whatever the publisher is. So
Yeah. Well, a lot of those VR games are always made by like their own companies. It's,
right, yeah,
mostly
I
all
think they
kind
just
of,
bought the rights to the Metro franchise or whatever, or at least to use the IP name or whatever it is.
yeah.
But
Um, but then speaking of which, so, you have that ending there. And then we go into the Sam story, which is sort of the continuation DLC. And this DLC in itself is really good. Like just
yeah,
by itself, like it's a standalone thing that like adds more context to the post game journey here. And Sam's our one American character played by oh god, I'm like his name once again, Steve Bloom, and the fact that now you have a character that actually talks throughout it and adds context to things and goes through the storyline, and he's on like the far east of like Russia, and his whole goal is he wants to get back to the US and see if he has any
mhm,
relatives, especially his dad left and so on like that.
yep,
And just the places you go and the people you meet throughout here, there's a lot of these just real interesting characters, and it leaves you with a lot of like you're never too sure how these twists and turns are going to work in this one.
yep, yep. Wonderful. So I told you this afternoon right before we hopped on the podcast, like I was replaying through the summer section into the cannibal section and whatnot. There's a scene where all your boys are there, right? So like you can talk with Anna, and then like you go to the next area or whatever, and there's like Katya and the dude, and they're not married yet, but you can see the relationship building and all that. And then there's just the room with the boys, and like all the
Yeah.
boys are just chilling out there. Sam's one of them, and they're talking about previous life and whatnot. I had just completed, the Sam DLC a couple nights ago or whatever, now replaying through this particular section. And it gets to Sam, and one of the guys, is just like, Sam, what do you miss about the old world? And blah blah blah. And he goes, man, he's like, I miss my skateboard, and I miss, like smoking a joint on the beach and blah blah blah. And he's just going on and on and on, and the like, to now have the context of Sam's story of like he's like from fucking San Diego,
Yeah.
like he's like he's a Californian, like they made his way over there through the war and whatnot, got stuck in the metro for 20 years and like, needs to get out. His father's ancient. He needs to see if his dad's okay and whatnot. And then to just kick off on this story of this like American just stuck in Russia, post-apocalypse and whatnot. Like it's just such a fucking cool story to be told.
Yeah, and it's like you meet pretty much two major guys that kind of like go back and forth on your story. You meet this older dude named Ed right off the bat, and because you put your gun down and talk to him and so on like that, he kind of becomes your pal. And then there's another American guy who's out here named Tom, and he's kind of like running this submarine. That's pretty much the one way that Sam's looking like, well, with a submarine, I can get back home. Like there we
Mhm.
go. And they got a nuclear powered one, which is always that's always the thing in like these kind of stories is that if someone has a nuclear powered submarine, they can pretty much be taken care of for many years post nuclear fallout.
Yep.
And so you kind of have this, and then you go to meet Tom, and Tom kind of sets you off. He's like, oh yeah, he's almost like a little bit too like, hey, no, American, come on in. Like he doesn't question you one bit and stuff, and then says like, you want to go America? Yeah, we'll drive off together. It's like almost like to the point where it's like it seems like the guy's a little bit too forward in gift giving
Yep.
here.
Yep.
I kind of thought there was going to be like a turn or something like that, and he's just set you off on a couple missions that he wants to get done, and you pretty much have to go and work with Ed and so on like that. And there's some great scenes that happen throughout this. Like there's a part where you go to save Ed from a bunch of like of those kind of mutant zombie creature things, just like the ghouls and Fallout. And once you kill all these guys and so on, you're hanging out in Ed's bunker and whatnot. And he also says like, oh, my knees all kind of messed up and something like that. He's like, yeah, give me some of that alcohol here. I normally don't drink, but just I just need something to get rid of the pain. And then it goes on this like giant montage of this drinking party that they go,
Yep.
and it's great. Like the power goes out, and they're like, oh, we gotta go fix the generator, but they can't have a couple cocktails and so on like
Yep.
that. And then they're like, it's not working. And it kind of goes in and out. And then all of a sudden, there's like some guys down there like with a boom box, and they're like, hey, look at that. And the next thing you know, it's like hard cuts to them back at the generator working on it again, and now they just have the boombox with them.
Yep. Yep. If anybody has played Red Dead Redemption 2, there's a very, very similar scene that happens in Red Dead Redemption 2 where you go to the town of Strawberry and you go drinking that night. And it's you and all the boys, and it's just you're having fun and whatnot. It's exactly the same in Metro Exodus here. Um, I loved this whole section, this whole scene, like everything about it was just like so heartening and just like hell yeah. It's just the American just like, meeting the captain, meeting the guy, that he's supposed to, and just like just having a grand old time. Wonderful. It's so funny. It's so good.
And this guy, Ed, he's the original commander of that submarine. And
Mhm.
somehow, some way, he lost control of it to Tom, and they sort of had a falling out. Like they don't hate each other, but they don't really get along or trust each other too. It's kind of like they just had like a mutual agreement to work together. Because then there's in a sense, you would say there's a third faction where there is a bunch of guys that are a bunch of, in a sense, almost like terrorist type ones, because everybody's fighting over trying to get that submarine no matter what.
Yep.
That's where all the power is at. And this is where it leads to like, the gameplay is totally fine for a while. Then you get that stupid boat section where like it just does not want to drive well, it does not move, and so on and whatnot. But once you kind of get your bearings in there and finally figure out where to go, it continues on pretty well and gives you kind of another little partial open world section to explore.
Yep.
There's some things there, nothing too over the top, but at the same time, it's still like it's almost a game in itself.
Yeah. No, this whole DLC, like, I mean, if they sold it as, like a $10, standalone experience or something, it's like I think it's totally fine for that,
It's almost one of those ones you could literally sell it for like $20 and you'd feel like, oh, I got my money's worth out of that.
Yeah.
Especially or maybe if it was like the two DLCs combined together, like they are pretty legitimate DLCs.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, I really didn't have very high expectations for either of them, which is just me by default with DLC in general. Like, I more often than not, usually it's just like, developer didn't make enough money on, first sale. Like, let's grab some more, More often than not, too, I always feel like DLC feels like it's something that was developed alongside the main game that was held off, just to sell later and whatnot. And I hate that. But this doesn't feel like that. This doesn't feel like that.
No, this just literally just feels like you're getting literally bonus content that adds a lot more story context on there. And it makes sense as DLC because just the way that it's told is that you're seeing it from other characters' perspectives, which in turn, when you were saying like it'd be cool if like the fifth game went to like America, they might be able to do something where they just do a DLC that's sort of like Sam's story. Like it'd be kind of cool if they did Sam's story part 2.
Yeah.
And you just, because lo and behold, as this thing goes on, you get all the parts or whatever's needed that, they get that submarine going so they can travel to America. And you're kind of given this ultimatum by Ed. He's like, we're going to go on that submarine. And here's the thing. I just don't trust Tom having the full control of this nuclear powered submarine and so on like that. So he's like, long time ago, whatever, we put a sabotage section in there. So I'm going to give you this detonator. And when the time comes, you know what to do, and pretty much or he says like when the time comes, you make the decision, but I think you will know what to do. Right. So he kind of gives you this thing here, and you're like, oh, okay. And you go through this epic battle at the very end. You're blasting through, killing all kinds of guys. It's a great action scene and so on like that. I mean, even to the point where you get up to the final top of the tower, and there is like the boss guy of like the terrorist group or whatnot, and you have this big old slug out fight in there. It's all like. Yep. It's one of those ones where I almost felt like it almost needed to be like an active time press kind of thing.
Yeah. Because I was surprised there wasn't QT either.
Well, it's kind of weird because like in this game, like they'll literally have like a couple moments where you just have to tap square, but like that's it. Like it's kind of weird when they do that thing where they'll have just a brief part of it, but not very much. And I know like for some reason there's a lot of people that just couldn't like handle it. Like I don't know why that was ever such an issue, because for the most part I kind of like it, unless it's those ones where they make you have to watch a long ass cutscene if you mess up. That's the only time where it kind of sucks. But like in general, I think that I do enjoy it more than I don't. But whatever, you watch this scene, it's badass, they fight it out and so on. And then as the sub's taken off, you kind of get the choice of like, do I go to America or do I blow the sub up?
Yep.
And what I kind of like about it though is that like the game makes you kind of feel like blowing the sub up is going to be like the good ending, but it's kind of the other way around,
Yeah.
where you go to America and you actually, I think that's more the better ending in a sense, because Sam's able to go to America. Tom doesn't do anything wrong. And in fact, like the whole time it makes you feel like this guy's going to be the one who he's going to do something shady. He never does,
Yeah.
you know? And in a sense, I think by doing the other ending, like, yeah, like Ed gets to, not see anybody drive his sub, but in a weird way, it's like, okay, Ed's going to die no matter what because he's making a distraction.
Yep.
But it's either like, do you either kill like a copious amount of people on a submarine just for Ed's honor, or do you let all those guys live?
Right.
And then when you kill the submarine, you're stuck in Russia, like in the snow still. Like it's not helping your cause one bit. So it feels like that choice was like the total wrong one in a sense.
Oh yeah.
Karma wise, it's kind of it's working in the back of your mind thinking that like maybe I need to do this, but like I think that Sam gets kind of screwed by not doing the Tom choice.
100%.
Yeah. And then you once again all those other guys get killed over too, just because once again Ed doesn't want anybody else driving his ship.
Yeah. Yep. No, and I really liked so I just made a gut reaction decision during that. I did not blow up the ship. I wanted Sam to get home, because like that has been his thing even back to the vanilla game. He wants to go home, like so I wanted to see him through that. And seeing him pull up to the harbors of, San Francisco or whatever with the fucking, like Golden Gate and the bridge, or,
all
like
destroyed
in the distance and all that. And like, yeah, it's just super cool, was super happy to see that. It was the other ending when I went back to the other ending and, blew up the thing. And, like he's just sitting there on the pier at the end, or whatever, and kind of slumps over. And I was just like, oh, maybe he just dies, like at the end of that ending or whatever. But no, then he wakes up again, like he's sitting in front of this pond, in the middle of nuclear fallout winter again, just like essentially just pissed, just like I will make it home one day and blah blah blah,
Yeah, because now he's just killed a copious amount of people. Like when you think about it, like he killed everybody that was going to help him out on anything. Yeah.
Yep. So, but yeah, really, really phenomenal story. And it was actually kind of lengthy. I think like I probably put in about 4 hours, 4 or 5-ish hours into that, that whole experience. Granted, a portion of that was getting stuck in the boat section. but
if you just found a way to take that boat section out, that DLC would be pure perfect. That was the only thing is that stupid boat section.
Yep. And the only other like mechanic thing that I'd like to talk about, I really like the bat stuff in this whole section.
The bat boss is cool.
So there's a bat boss that you come across, and like really early on in Sam's story too. It's like your first time outside. Those bats are like flying around and whatnot, and they like home in on you and like come down and stuff. And there's some achievement for that. I think if you don't take damage through them or something to that effect, or if you don't die from it or whatever throughout the totality of your play throughout Sam's story, you get an achievement for that or something. So anyways, there is a mechanic for that. And yet again, another like really cool animation based thing. So in Metro proper, like when you come across like a bunch of spider webs and whatnot and you walk through it, like in this game, like it throws animations of like spiders like walking over your mask and like over your arm and stuff like that. Here too with the bats, as they swoop down and like come at you and whatnot, they like slap to your fucking like gas mask, like screech in your face real quick, and then they fly off and stuff. And it's just dumb little animations and things like that, but just again, like for how much this game has evolved over time, to like be to this level of quality, it's just phenomenal. Just everything's cohesive, within, and I think it's really good. So
yeah, no, I was overall super impressed with the Sam story one. It was one of those things where it's like, it was probably one of the best DLCs I probably played in quite a while, where it's just like, oh, this is, once again, it felt like a legitimate game and so on like that. It added a lot to it. Sam was a cool character, just the whole story exploring of it all. And there was new weapons and everything throughout it. So you did get a bunch more new stuff.
Yeah.
And as I said, the story was really neat. As I said, I think the coolest thing would be is if they did a Sam Part 2 story. Yeah. Where he does land in like San Francisco and makes his way to San Diego. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yep. No, and I could totally see them, breaking off and doing its own, like own sub story, just Metro, whatever, Sam story, like essentially, like, I think they could totally do that. And again, like I'm still kind of hopeful that they do something in 2039 that isn't specifically Russia, Moscow, Ukraine. Like I hope that they do explore some other that it's pieces that we hear about in this game too. When we're in the final missions and whatnot, and we come across the maps, a lot of the point of finding the maps is to see where the non-radiated zones are. So by default, like the world is probably fucked everywhere, like minus these little pockets of paradise, and whatever. So I think that the Metro franchise in general just like has a huge opportunity to be able to explore, like what if they took us to Africa, what if they took us to
Yep.
Japan, what if they took us to like whatever, like lots of really cool possibilities that way. So
Yeah, that's how I kind of feel too, because I think once again, really at the end of the day, I think why I might even say I probably like Metro 3 more than the other ones, not by a whole lot, but I just love how like the environment kept continuously
mhm,
changing. Like you
mhm.
didn't really know where you were going to go next. And I like the kind of the journey, the traveling, the road story.
Yeah.
And just the fact that, like, once again, there's a lot of stuff in Russia that you don't normally get to see because mostly you're always on literally the west side. And that's why also like Metal Gear Solid 3 is kind of cool because it's in like that southern like jungly section of like Russia.
Yep.
But that's the thing, there's so much different climate sections that you can explore in Russia. I think it's cool to
Yep.
actually see much of it. And once again, I'm really excited to play the VR game because that was actually how we initially started. I was like, hey, we should play that VR one on there. And you're like, let's play the first three first.
Yeah.
And it was great to finally go through them all. One, because they've been sitting there in my collection forever, and I've always had the good intention of playing them, but just with like so many games, sometimes you don't always get around to them.
Yep.
But now I'm also excited to see where this VR like adds in its kind of story and elements and
Mm-hmm.
so on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it was really nice to see too. A lot of the core designs of everything has remained the same throughout all of these different games. The shrimps still look the same way they do in Last Light.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the little like mole rat looking things and whatnot from the Metro series, systems and whatever. The faux dog looking, like creatures that, plus they added a whole bunch of new ones too, man, like the little bats and whatnot, like
Yeah.
within
Well, and
Sam's story. The good.
I was say the librarian like gorilla things actually
Yeah.
come back too, which was really badass. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that's cool," because they were in
Yep.
the first one, and like, yeah, they just kind of didn't appear in anything else. And then you're like, "Oh, that's sweet that they brought those in there."
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but I think I'll say I think that's one of the credits I'll give Metro. All three of them is the game never sold out because
Yep.
that was always a problem in this era. And I always use Mass Effect as the example because Mass Effect was the one where don't worry, I still like 2 and 3, but it literally felt like that those ones sold out because of how good and how much I loved the first Mass Effect. And when the second one came out, I was kind of disappointed in it. It was
Right.
just one of those ones like I still like the game, but like it was like you had this such a cool system and the way that it was set up, and I like the RPG elements and all that stuff, and you just kind of threw a bunch of that out there just to kind of be like almost like knockoff Gears of War. And don't get me wrong, I
Yeah.
love Gears of War, but I wasn't playing Mass Effect to play Gears of War.
Yeah. Well, so I watched a video earlier too that was describing Metro 2039 in that it's not going to be. It feels like the first game in the first person shooter genre that is narrative based. It feels like the first game in forever that isn't trying to target mass appeal, isn't trying to target mass audience. Like this feels like 4A is still sticking to their guns, doing what 4A wants to do, and all we've seen is a cinematic trailer. I don't know. I mean, like I guess we've seen a hair of gameplay, but it's very doctored up. Like I
Mhm.
want to see raw. Like what is this game actually going to be?
Yeah.
But because 2033, Last Light, Exodus, very likely, even though it's a different development studio, very likely Awakening is going to be the same. I guarantee it's probably going to be just as cohesive. I have a feeling that 2039 is going to be that like narrative driven style FPS game that we really deserve as gamers, like
Mhm.
um Stalker 2 should have been that, but Stalker 2 launched in a broken state. So it really doesn't surprise me when you say like, "Oh, I just heard that, it got bumped out to February next year or whatever." Like take your time for it.
Yeah.
Don't rush this shit because you guys make quality games and I fucking adore them. Like just take your time with it. I'm sure whatever story and narrative and gameplay style you're trying to tell is going to be wonderful. And the other side of this too is that through through the 2039 trailer with the developers talking in that trailer, they very much are stating like they want to go back to the linear based style of Metro proper, 2033 and Last Light style. I hope that they add somewhat of a little bit of Exodus elements into 2039, but like if they straight up just go back to that just streamlined, Half-Life style experience, like okay, I'm cool. Like hell yeah, I'm totally good with that.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me, and but yeah, but the nice thing is the fact that they did. The game never radically changed. It didn't become Call of Duty, because that's always the thing that happens a lot of, like Halo 4 or something like that, where like you start switching it up so much that like it's like, well, wait a second, I came here to play one game. Why are we playing like another game? Because that was always a downfall to a lot of shooting games, is that they started all playing like Call of Duty, and it's like that's fine for Call of Duty, but like I don't want the other games to play like that,
Right. Yep.
So that's just nice. And all three of those Metro games, that they stayed like a Metro game. You felt like you were still playing it. It didn't just all of a sudden hardcore shift. And I don't imagine that the fifth one's going to shift at all either. I think that it will, stick the course and so on like that. I think they sort of have like a target audience that like you don't, because in a sense the Metro games they're never like in that giant category of games. So I don't think they're not competing with like, EA games and, Ubisoft. So they kind of have this, like, they're almost like in a weird way, like it feels like they're borderline like high end indie, even though I wouldn't call them indie, but like in a sense that like, they're not really AAA. They're like almost like regular A or something like that,
No,
even though the quality, I think like it's up there, but it feels like that's kind of it. They fit, kind of like how I'd even say like there's other offshoot games, like sort of like that RoboCop and Terminator games. They kind of feel like they're in about that same, category too, but they're solid games and so on like that, but they're not really going after like the high end slots.
I think that in Artyom's vanilla based story within Exodus, I fully agree with that. The only reason why I'll say something different here, that may be a hot take, but Sam's story and the Two Colonels DLC, because they have characters that we're playing as and we're controlling, but they have voices and whatnot, that felt like a Far Cry experience to me. It reminded me so much of either Far Cry or Dying Light, is like a more recent zombie style. You play as Kyle Crane, like he's got a voice, first person style game. I don't know what direction I want 2039 to go at this point, because like Artyom was like, he felt like he needed a voice. That's why I mentioned at the start of this episode, like throughout the totality of this series, like there was something that just didn't hit perfectly. And I think that's literally it. It's that Artyom just didn't have a voice outside of the, loading screen dialogue, I would hope that, I don't know, because I hate it in Fallout. I hate it in Fallout 4. I hated when they added your character having a voice or whatever, but you also have multiple choice. This is more of a streamlined game where whatever's going to happen happens. You don't have dialogue choices per se. So I don't know what I want 2039 to be. A silent protagonist is totally fine if it's you as the player. If I create that character, but Artyom was an established character, and I really feel like he needed a voice, and I think it was cemented in my head by playing Sam's story of just how much more I remember that campaign. I was into that campaign. Like, Sam was just like the American badass in the Russian, frontier, like, so again, I don't know. I don't know what I want out of 2039, but whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be fucking great.
Well, and it's sometimes I think about with like, and you could have like not necessarily the silent protagonist, but if you just have like the protagonist just not say a whole lot of words but still speak, I think that's almost a better thing. Just have them speak with like very little dialogue, so they don't, because sometimes that is kind of annoying when you're playing. It's like, this is supposed to be like your character, and your character has all this like backstory and all this kind of stuff, but it's like, well, you made me create this character and everything like that, and now it doesn't really even feel like it's I'm just playing somebody else's story. Where of course in Metro you're playing it like it's like an interactive movie is really what it is. So you're kind of going along with Artyom. You look at it like more that way, and as I said, this one feels kind of like a strange one to not have it. One, because he does talk in the loading screens, and two, because everybody else kind of talks to you, and it's not like you created the character. I mean, guess because maybe you don't see the character, that's why they're kind of doing a little bit more there. But yeah, I always do kind of have some mixed feelings about that too, because there's certain games that I think work better it's kind of like Zelda. I think it's best that Link doesn't necessarily speak in that one, because that one you're supposed to embody yourself as Link,
Yep.
even though you know what Link looks like and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think a lot of times your words are like when you're supposed to speak for the character.
Mm-hmm.
But Artyom almost seems, it just makes him seem like he's kind of like this mute special ed kid that like
Yeah.
somehow, some way gets the colonel's daughter and everything like that.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yeah.
yeah, as I said, I'm stoked for the next two games to play them. And as I said, that this is one of those trilogies I thought it just continuously got kind of better each one.
Yeah.
Just they kept stacking on each other, and they were all good, but like, yeah, it's just one of those ones that it never was like a dip in quality.
Yeah. I still think, and I told you this a few days ago, and even after playing through DLC, kind of like retouching into the vanilla campaign again, just kind of just jumping into random chapters and playing a little bit today, I still think I like Last Light the best. Last Light just has it's just such a well-paced game,
Mhm.
not to this game is near perfect as well. It's like it's comparing a 99 to a 98. Like it's literally like that to me. But I still think out of the trilogy so far, like Last Light is still probably my favorite. I love the factional shit within that. Like that game is just, it just gets me every time, man. But Exodus, for finally, after however many years it's been, what has it been, the 7 years now at this point since this game came out, to finally have the excuse to sit down, play it, get to play the fucking PC enhanced edition on my new GPU and all that too. Like, dude, Metro Exodus is well worth anybody's time. I think this whole trilogy is well worth everybody's time. Like if you're into that narrative driven, like, like make you sit back and think about some shit, by the end of the night and whatnot. I just love it. I personally, this type of game wholly does it for me. Russia, post-apocalyptic, mutated, fucking count me in. Like it's the shit.
Yeah, no, it's solid. And the fact that you could pretty much get this trilogy for give or take like $6.99.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like what's the excuse,
Yep.
You just got to get the time to kind of, get it going. But yeah, no, it just only makes me more excited for more Metro as we go down the line. But yeah, all in all, what? I forgot, I wrote this in my notes, but this was, dude, in the Sam one, I know we talked about this before, but we didn't talk about it on the podcast. But there was this mine detector feature you got that was one of the most god awful, annoying things I've ever seen. I know we just have all this great code. Like, let me bring up this mine detector, because you get this thing. It's like, the game keeps telling you like, oh, there's gonna be a lot of mines out there. It's gonna be real dangerous, and so I better have your mine detector on, and so on like that. So I put this thing on, and then it keeps telling you that, oh, it also detects all kinds of other stuff too. It'll detect enemies, it'll detect like weapon caches, all this kind of stuff. So you're wearing this thing never goes off. It just continuously beeps horrendously the whole time. And since I'm playing it on PlayStation, it beeps out of the controller, which makes it even more loud and annoying. And I was just like, for a long time, I was like, dude, what is this? Is this just going to keep going on like this? And then I remember like after a while, I'm like, okay, here's in a sense, an upgrade station. Let me just go there and see if I can take this piece off. And hope that that's the thing that stops it. And then I finally take off. I'm like, oh, thank Christ, that thing stopped beeping and so on. And then I finally remember running across a mine. And then I got killed by one mine. But then I kind of realized, I'm like, oh, you can either sneak up and disable them, or if you hear the mine go off, just keep running. You don't need this mine detector as much.
Yep. So before we end this, I will explain my experience with the beeping noise. So I recognized pretty early on that there's a little thing on your wrist that beeps at you and shows little green dots or whatever. And really early on, it was beeping through a wall that I couldn't get through, and there was a locked door. And I'm like, how the fuck do I get in there? And I'm just walking around, and I couldn't figure it out. I just really couldn't figure it out, and I never did. But that stuck in my head. I'm like, because I never read a tooltip about it. I never read anything. I didn't know what it was. It was just a circle on my wrist that just had little green dots that were beeping. So I just assumed, because it was behind a locked door, that it was like loot. It's like a loot sniffer type thing or something. And I'm like, okay, that's weird, but whatever, And then we finally get to the boat section, and then you make it to that little middle island. You go past the bat fight and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden, that thing is just going off. And I'm like, where's the loot? Where's the loot? And I'm like walking around, you know, and then I finally like see it, and I see that there's a mine on the ground. And I go, oh, okay. So I walk up to the mine and I disable it or whatever, but the thing just continually beeps. I had your exact same thought. I'm like, how the fuck do I remove this thing? Because mines are massive. They're huge. And you can just see them, you know, like, so I'm like, why would I ever need? So I go to a freaking upgrade station and I take the thing off. And then I leave and I start walking. And all of a sudden I just hear beep, 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 boom, and just fucking kills my ass. And sends me all the way back to my save 20 minutes back. And I'm like, no. Well, maybe I had to wear this stupid thing. So I wore it the rest of the freaking game.
You kept it. I was like,
beep, beep, beep. Just like, God, dude.
Oh, that beeping sound was so intense.
Yeah. But okay, so two things are wrong with this freaking DLC. The boat mechanics suck, and the incessant beeping in your ear.
Yeah, that beeping. Yeah, just like it's just such a high pitch, annoying one. I mean, you combine that also with the radiation sound that never seems to go off either at some points.
Yeah.
So you just get that crackling.
And the tooltip says detects mines and some other important things, like in quotations. And it's like, what does that mean? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I get the mine one because it probably would be if there were certain areas, okay, it comes on up, but it's literally beeping like the entire game. Like it never goes off.
It brings back freaking big shell moments in Metal Gear for me, dude. It's like, you know, like running around like trying to listen for the beep and shit, you know?
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Anyway.
But yeah, there's just a couple goofy things. But I always feel like in DLC, that's where like you experiment with some features and see what sticks and what doesn't. Because like worst case is in a DLC, if you have a goofy feature, it's like, it's just the DLC. It's like, you know, that's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Well, at least the DLC was actually good here. Like, you know,
the
DLC okay, but it was super short. Like there really wasn't too much context to it. But anyways, at least the DLCs both were quality, you know, like I would pay for them over again. So
exactly. So no, they were super good. But there's our good Metro trilogy, and then we'll come back in a couple episodes and do the VR one. But till then, you know, go check out more Silent Evil podcast along with Old Man Orange on YouTube and Spotify. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I am Cameron.
And we'll see you some other time.